prejudice. So I have a preference to be around more Black people than white people. Okay, but I'm not racist. And so at no point in time should any Black people allow any group of people on earth to label them racist. Okay, because we are not in the same economic position that these other nations of people are in. Okay, and so that's the very key thing to understand with racism, the definition. Now you have race relations, right, which talk about how we relate to each other in a society based on race, color, ethnicity. So that's very, that's my contribution to definitions, because before you understand anything and before you reason, you must understand definitions, right? And when you understand definitions, it will help you understand, better,
That's
so
right.
yeah, so there's a lot of what I call emotionalism, right? Emotionalism is when we say that racism is the hatred of white folks or the hatred of Black folks, right?
Let you go.
Yeah, that's the wrong way to approach life. It's not an emotional thing. And if we approach things from an emotional place, we miss the mark, because life is not an emotion. Life is about logical, critical, analytic thinking, because Jah created us with the mind, and this is the modes of the mind, the right and the left hemisphere of the brain, So it's very important as Black people. Slavery and colonization stunted our growth in a sense that a lot of Black people approach life emotionally. Oh, I don't feel like, and I don't like, so, and life is not about that, right? So even when we look at the world we live in, we have to have a very clear understanding, clear definitions of things. Alton Maddox, right? He's a lawyer, one of a great Black lawyers here in America. He has a definition, and he says the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their right name, and that all this right name, right definition is very important, because African people were tricked using words, using definitions, and we are still tricked by our inability to define things. The power to define reality is in the hands of white folks and the other people. So that's why Black people live the life they do. So we have to regain the power of definition. Define for ourselves what is intelligence, define for ourselves what is the purpose of education and what kind of education. So it's very important, right, to understand definitions. And one of the greatest deceptions that the world is living under is the wrong definition of racism as an emotion. And racism is not an emotion, it's an economic agenda. It's the basis of capitalism. We are going to exploit one group of people, to our economic benefit, the basis of slavery and imperialism. So it's very, very, very important for Bobo Shanti people to understand and be very clear, that, we cannot, because I've heard a lot of people say Bobo people are racist, and that really irritates me. When we say Black supremacy, we're not talking of racist, talking about Black nationalism, right? And I believe in we should believe in white nationalism.
Ready.
White people have a right to have
Try
their
and get
own
this girl to sleep.
Go through.
Okay, so nationalism, Black nationalism, right? We should appreciate every group of people in Earth being a nationalist under their own right. Black people have a right to be Black nationalists, and we should never allow ourselves to be called or labeled racist because we choose to organize ourselves based on race. Okay, and in the society that we live in, we're bombarded with issues of multiculturalism. Things like multiculturalism break down the definition of racism to an emotion. Okay, and we have to be very careful about these concepts, and how we embrace them.
Pretty, my sister.
Yes.
All right. You answered racism as a material aspect.
It is, yeah, and racism is a race for control of power and resources.
Okay, pretty. What about racial discrimination, or even this word, ism? What really is ism?
Let the meeting start.
Pretty Omega. Honorable Prophet Daniel Malone.
My Lord.
Would you like to start or we could continue?
Yeah, it would be nice if we could start officially.
Let's start.
Open the
Yeah,
reasoning.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we would start then?
Yes, my lord.
Okay. So we would start with the 133rd Psalm of King David. My Lord?
Yes, honorable. Go through it, please.
Okay. First, glory be.
So our
Glory
Father,
be to the
God,
Son,
Father,
to the Holy One. As Jah was in the beginning, even there shall be the world without end. That's the eye. Rastafari. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for us, brothers and sisters, to dwell together in unity and love. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that runneth down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirt of his garment, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountain of Zion. For there the Lord commanded his blessing, even life and love forevermore. So we hail our God, Selassie, Jehovah God, Rastafari. Our Almighty God, Rastafari, great and terrible God, Rastafari, the Almighty God. Jah, who seated in Zion, reigneth in the hearts of all flesh. O thou most high, eternal Father, God, Rastafari. Hear us and bless us, O Lord. Keep us and sanctify us all. Cause thine holy face to shine upon us, thy children, that we shall be saved and redeemed. O thou most high God, Jah, Rastafari. The king shall join thy strength, O Lord, and in thy salvation how greatly shall he rejoice. For thou hast given him his heart's desire, and has not withholden the request of his lips. Selah, Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. Blessed love, my Lord, Empress, Prince, Princess, give thanks. And over on to the royal prophet, my Lord.
My Lord, give thanks, honorable. Give thanks everyone who's here in the Zoom meeting with us, and give thanks for everyone who's watching on YouTube. Same way. The Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress International Study Group recent discussion. Tonight's topic is adultery and racialism. What is it? And going into how does it apply to Bobo Shanti culture? So, Honorable Priest Headley, our leading priest with us tonight, is, going to, I guess, introduce the topic and tell us about what is adultery as far as Bobo Shanti culture is considered, and you can just go wherever you want to go with it from there, my Lord, and we'll just follow and reason as we go.
As the Omega and I was having a little reasoning before still, because we're trying to clear up a certain, I wouldn't say understanding and certain definitions,
Yeah.
that we're going to touch because, I am not really, I must let everyone know, I am not a big educated person, right? Because most of my education comes through Sabbath school, and with our father, yes. So I'm not really, so I'm learning.
You are highly educated. You come from the highest university on earth.
Well, as I said before, when I come to my father, that's where I get my teaching, the reality of the teaching, because I did learn of it spiritually. When I come to the Father now, I get the reality, Give thanks.
And that's what we want. And that's what we want to know.
Yeah, that's what we come for. Natural.
So, Priest Edley, we're talking about isms, right? Ism is ism, the suffix ism, ism, right? And so we see now that's another thing about definitions, right? I'm going to show you. There's a dictionary. Not all dictionaries give the same definition, right? And not all dictionary hold the same weight. So I would. My greatest suggestion to Bobo Shanti people is that when you're defining words, you must use the Black's Law Dictionary. Okay? Because these will give you the legal definition of terms. Okay? Not the emotional. So it's called the Black's Law Dictionary.
Pretty a moment, Omega. What's the name of the dictionary?
It's called Black's Law Dictionary. What I'm gonna do is try and send some links into the reasoning so that you can link on it as well. But it's called the Black's Law Dictionary, and maybe if a good angel can give Bobo Hill that would be really great, because the priests will be able to sit amongst themselves and deal with different kind of knowledge as well. You understand?
That's good.
That would be helpful. But it's called the Black's Law Dictionary. So I'm going to define ism by a Black's Law Dictionary. So I'm going to go look for it on the Black's Law Dictionary, okay? Because in psychology, ism is defines a split in the personality, right?
Okay.
Right. So an ism is like a split in your personality. So Black people suffer from a lot of isms, a split in the personality because of colonization and slavery. What happened when the African experienced colonization and slavery, the slave masters, they inculcated a different personality into the African personality. So the African changes, right? And is no longer holding his African culture and starts to hold a different culture that is reflective of where he's at right now. So that's what you call a schism, which is a split in the personality, in the African personality, right? Okay. Loss of language, loss of culture, right? Right. So now the African personality is being, and within that process of slavery, because slavery and colonization was a conditioning of the African personality, right? Meaning that they put into African people a lot of things that would help, that would make us servants to them. Do you understand? Right. So we have the inability to get along, inability for Black people to trust one another. We can be very mistrusting of each other. We're leery of each other. That trait was placed in the African personality for the economic benefit of Europeans. So if you look at everything that Black people have a difficulty with, in terms of getting along, all these difficulties equate to the economic benefit of Europeans. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to understand, when we speak of slavery and colonization, we have to understand the conditioning that happened to the personality, the African personality, that causes a split or an ism. All right. So that is we're talking on a psychological level right now, right? So now we're going to go on a definition of ism. All right. And I'm going to go into Black's Law Dictionary, priest, to find the definition for you, right? And even for myself,
Yes, and in the meantime, I will tell you that our Father make it so plain and simple. He say he come to mash up ism and schism.
Is naturally, my Lord. And he did. And he did. King Emmanuel's teaching puts back the African back into his proper personality. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So
frame of mind.
Yes, he does mush up the ism, because now he breaks the split in the African personality that occurred because of slavery and colonization, because Jah teaches us to overcome them things. And when you overcome that, you work on your personality,
True.
Yeah, so the Father is the highest psychologist in the world.
Empress.
First anointed teacher, my sister.
Yes, honorable.
Empress.
Honorable.
Let's allow the priest to introduce the topic of adultery before we go further.
Okay.
And then we'll get there.
All right, no problem. So yes, honorable priest, give thanks for the moments, family.
Yes, bless my sister, blessed.
Honorable.
Adultery. Where I have to take it from what I learned on the road, right? Before I come to the highest college, to show us that they would say adultery is when one is married and he go and take another empress. He commits adultery. But when I come to Jerusalem schoolroom now, I know of adultery within many different forms. But the greatest of all adultery, the Father say, is when we cross our nation. And the reality that in myself, I see from that is that for truth, when two different nations go together and bring a child, there is conflict within that child.
Absolutely.
So that would be a big problem. He said, Israel, Black people among themselves don't commit adultery. They commit fornication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because so when it comes to it is more fornication. And what I would say, beloved, coming to this college again, or this Jerusalem school, what we learn, because Black supremacy teaching, it is so wide, and it causes a lot of confusion because of people look at it as just color, you know, when it is not just because it is Black, we just look at, just the skin color, because it is wide, very wide. And remember, the Black man, the Black woman, womb man, bring all nation. No other nation can bring the Black. So it is just natural, the Black people, father, mother for the world. So even in the commandments, when the Father tells us that we must honor our father, our mother, it's earthly from them time, but coming forward to the adultery, my Lord, it's when we cross our nation that is really the greatest adultery, or the adultery I know now. When we should interfere with our brother, it's a fornication, I don't know if it is a lesson.
My Lord, when you say cross our nation, can you just explain exactly what that means, please?
It's like a Black man going to a white womb man, or a Chinese, or the same, vice versa, the child that produce the union, that union produce, I see that's caused a lot of problems, I would ask anyone else how they see it,
Love, honorable priest, you are so right on point. Yes, I believe the true definition of adultery is the interracial mixing of people. Human beings are the only creatures in creation that do that. No other animal in creation does that. Red ants don't mix with lions don't mix with tigers unless human beings go into a lab and mix them. You understand what I'm saying?
True.
Nature, please God, only human beings can
are vile.
Yes, they can have a problem. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and on a deeper level, also, honorable priest, the blood, like for me, with this King Emmanuel culture and the drum sound, right? When the blood is mixed, there's a tendency for the blood in the person to on a spiritual level. Remember, because life is spiritual and temporal, right? And as African people, we must acknowledge spirit at all times. So when you do that, you have to understand the ancestors that come with that blood that you mix in. You understand what I'm saying? So you can get conflict in the person. And so sometimes a lot of mixed multitude people, will have a difficulty with being more stable with certain emotions, okay? And a lot of people will talk about it from a social level, but I, as an African, would look at it spiritually and say, you have to understand the ancestors that are in the two person, the blood. And so the Naya Bingi, so I always tell my son is partly Indian, okay? Because I had children with an Indian man, okay? Who is a Black Indian, understand what we mean by that, right? I'm a African. The difference is in our hair, okay?
Right. Texture of wool.
Right, exactly. So, so my children will come off forth with more, the Indian hue, even though they are Black. You understand? So I teach them to understand you come from the womb of an African, so you can hold Africa, but you will not neglect your Carib Indian culture. Same way you got to understand ancestors. And then I teach my son that when life gets difficult and your blood starts to battle inside of you, you got to learn to play the drum sound. You got to play the drums to balance the frequency within. You see, so when we come to King Emmanuel, we're coming to learn so much. And as an African, trying my brothers to understand, not to give up, because you're there with King Emmanuel will heal everything. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes the difficulties in the culture make people give up, but don't give up, because he's the healer, he's everything. And everything within the culture will heal everything. You see? So I teach my son.
And blessed, I give thanks for that, my sister, because what I would say no to, because I find because of a local knowledge or understanding, then
Oh, you're not from the north.
we find that a lot of people now, our brothers and sisters, you know, you would find that lighter skinned brothers hold on to darker skinned sisters.
Yes, I see that.
and it is causing a problem, and these things need to be cleared up. You know, I know it shouldn't. But I'll tell you something. I tell you something, my sister, what I have learned. Right? Because I have passed through this, you know, my sister. It is a personal thing that I can tell you. Because my skin is light.
Right.
Right. And my empress skin was much darker than mine. Okay? And I passed through it.
Yes, honorable priest, we can just speak frankly, you know?
Right. I know that when we go around to the Father, he has never teaches us that.
Right.
We are all Israel.
Natural.
Right? So this is where a lot of that's why I want the definition of ism, you know, and schism, because a lot of that creepy in.
Yes, in the culture. You want to talk about it? Because I find it hilarious. I studied the history of the culture a little bit, and I realized even within Bobo Shanti, Black people started to fight each other over the hues of their skin, the color, light versus dark. And I believe Priest Rugu is the one who brought in the black culture, and King Emmanuel, I hear, that gave him a judgment for that.
I personally was a victim of that.
Yeah, personally. So exactly. So I mean, that is ignorance, and that is we got to. But we have to understand that we live in societies that deal with colorism, right? So when you and King
but
Emmanuel,
I would say, my sister, for what I have learned and what I have passed through, I would advise my brothers and my sisters, because remember, the Honorable Prophet was on a race purity also, right? And that even caused a little mix problem there along the way too, where we have to go into that in another time, right?
Right.
But I would advise, if I am a light-skinned Black, I will take a light-skinned Black.
You advise that?
I would advise that.
No, priest, that is honorable priest. That's a maintenance of, because first and foremost, you're talking about the hue of Blackness. And if we look at the African phenotype, I could take you to Africa right now, and I will show you some Black Africans, 100% Africans who have a hue that is very light. And I will take you to another region of Africa, and I'll show you Black Africans who have a very dark hue. So when we perpetuate that culture, what we're perpetuating is colorism, which is a byproduct of prejudice, which is a byproduct of, you know, which works to sustain the system if you're not careful, if you don't do it right, you know, because then you become no different. You become no different from Priest Rugu, who's on the black of Black, because now you're on the light to light. You understand? So this is dangerous.
No. This is why I take you there, you know, my sister.
Yes.
Because right now, this is very much alive within the courts.
Yeah, you know what? You're right about that. I realized that you have certain ones that take the culture so literal. Okay, so they want a Black empress, and if you're not Black, like dark skin, like really dark, they feel you're not Black enough. And I'm like, Blackness has got nothing to do with the hue of your skin.
Well,
hue of your skin, you know, which is the pigmentation, right? Some of us have more concentration of carbon, which will make you darker, or some will call it melanin, darker. Some have, you know, not as a higher concentrated amount of carbon, you know.
My sister all the what to say, teaching have to go back again where certain thing is concerned. Would you like to say something, Honorable Prophet Daniel?
Yes, I would. I was just gonna say that, all right, it's beyond the concept of colorism now. In a natural world, before people moved out of their land where they were, you know, like, you know, the world as we know it, we have people who came from one part of the world to another part of the world, right? And so those people, like say somebody, the blackest people from like say Senegal or somewhere, now you see them in America and in the Caribbean and things, whereas normally they wouldn't have been there. The people in the Caribbean were all around the same complexion. The people in the region, in all the different regions in Africa, in certain, say, ethnic groups, everybody's the same color. And everybody
Not
has some of the
necessarily.
same features.
Not-
Well, I mean, relatively though. They're
No,
not, they
not
don't
when
go
it
too
comes
far.
to hue. When it comes to hue, I would not agree with that as a phenotype, as a definition of a phenotype of an African, the hue. You know, we
Well,
cannot use the hue as
in
as
ethnic
a
group,
even in ethnic groups. No, because you can go among Zulu people, Xhosa people, and you find degrees of light and dark. You know,
okay.
yeah. To say that this ethnic group is only light skinned, you know, is pushing it to an
Well,
extreme.
for
You
the
know,
most part,
Pretty,
well, I mean,
pretty,
there's probably there's
pretty. Let
exceptions
me
to
ask
every rule.
let me ask a question. When you speak of it's just a natural that the color comes that way, the hue, as you would say,
yeah. Look in
or
my
it is
family.
because of interference with lighter rays.
No, it's natural because listen, if you go in the South, right? Let me speak of my grandmother, who's a Xhosa woman, right? Xhosa woman is probably lighter than you, Priest Edley. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
She's 100% African, no mixing her, no different blood. You understand? It's the
Okay.
hue of your skin, and the hue. If you come Southern Africa, the hues are you have medium, you know, different hues. I do not believe the hue is something that African people must separate themselves with. The only thing I believe that we must use as Black people to determine, you know, the degree and the spectrum is your hair, because you cannot deny the consistency of your hair. You know, the
Okay.
hair doesn't lie. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
So as
So
you
if you
touch that
Well, I
point,
was
as you mhm.
sorry, I
No,
was
as you
just
touch
gonna
that,
put,
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, like, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, right? But
truly,
generally, most regions and in any part of the world, people are roughly around the same. They look similar, you know what I mean? And that's why they group together. So it's like in those times, of course, there was places where, you know, you had ones and ones like in Southern Africa where you have different skin tones and, you know, things like that. But for the most part in the world, there wasn't too much mixing because people
true.
were in the region where only people like them lived, you know? So
Okay.
it's like, I don't think it's even about being like wanting to be separate necessarily, but just naturally, like you wouldn't, your woman, if you're a man, your woman is not gonna look too much different than you because she lives in the same area as you, and all the people in that area look, I mean,
Okay.
relatively similar. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
unless you're a person who travels, you know, great distance,
Right.
chances are you're
Yes.
not gonna have somebody who looks very different. So
That's a wider knowledge.
I think naturally people would be with people who look similar to them in general. But of
Yeah.
course, there's going to be certain, you know, times and places where there's differences. But for the most part, I think that's relatively true. Not because of phenotype and all of that, not because of wanting to be racist or separate or nothing like that, but just because of the natural flow of things.
Okay.
Okay,
Just
so
my
you
opinion.
say
It's my opinion.
okay, so you're saying with, because now we're talking about just the hue, light Africans versus with dark Africans, right?
Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
saying, Priest was saying light African to light African, dark African to dark African, right? That's the gist of it. My honorables, that one here is hard to take in, I have to say. Oh gosh, it's hard to take in, honorables. Oh gosh. I mean, there's elements of truth in what you're saying. I mean, you know, if when I think about, yeah, I mean, oh gosh, do I want somebody blacker? You know, I have never thought about that. I guess this is why I'm astonished, because I've never found someone and said, if as long as they're a Black man, whether you're light, you're dark, I have never really factored that in. I just, you know, you like someone because of that's deep.
Okay. Oh, so pardon me. Pretty. In your upbringing, you have never ever been through racialism?
Oh, in Zimbabwe, growing up in Zimbabwe, let me see what it was like. The reality under colonialism, the African battles with assimilation into European standards. Okay, because in Africa they didn't lose language; they still speaking native tongue. You understand? They still have culture, which is not biblical. Do you understand what I'm saying? They have African culture, like language, dance. All you understand what I'm saying? But you still see the African struggling to want to be accepting European standards. So yes, I struggled with that. What did I think growing up under colonialism in Africa? I mean, yeah, I didn't feel that white people were superior to me. That's one thing I didn't, because what happened in school, white people were not the majority. They were the minority. And then you're competing against Africans. So the intelligence was against other Africans. Europeans never really got high grades and high marks. You understand what I'm saying? So the European wasn't a problem, but yet still you admired his standards as if those standards were, the heights. You understand what I'm saying? You still spoke your language, but there's still a disconnect, that happens to a continental African who grows up under colonialism. You understand? Yeah, there's still some kind of reverence to European culture, which is inappropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you see down here in Jamaica, I think we are about what? 90% black people, right?
Right.
Yeah. And racialism down here,
is
they
interesting.
say it is rated like Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
Right? And from I was young, my granny used to tell me things off in the South, and what happened to black people here in Jamaica. If you're black, stay back. If you're brown, stick around. If you're white, you're right.
Yes.
And that is still going on here in Jamaica right now. This is why my father tells us, the only development for black people around here is fundamental freeness, redemption, international repatriation with our compensation lodged in the bank at home.
Priest Headley, my lord.
My lord.
Can you do me a favor and tell us, I've heard this, and you can tell me if this is actually something that King Emmanuel actually did say, that there's only two types of people in the world. There's black and there's white. If he actually did say that,
my lord.
If he did say that, what is black and what is white?
No, because of we coming up and learning of the color of people, right? Even more than white Jesus, right? Because in my young days, when I see white people, they were sailors that used to come to Jamaica, right? And I never have much to do with them, right? But everyone had this white Jesus in their houses, and up to now, when people praying, they still have this image. Yeah, because if I never come and learn of the honorable prophet where my granny teach me of, and come and learn of His Majesty in 1974, and he sent me to Emmanuel, I would be the same way. No, when I'm praying, I can have the image of the three man, or Queen Omega for that matter, because I see that the world don't want to give her fundamental human rights. So come back to it, my Lord, because even that again, my Lord, yes, he says, if you are not black, you are white. He said, as the honorable prophet also said, he would prefer a white man with a black heart than a black man with a white heart.
Okay.
So we must gain our understanding, our knowledge from that.
Okay.
Right? Because our greatest enemy now is most of the people that look black. They are the ones who is keeping up all of the problems.
Yes.
Mostly right now. You know?
Yes.
The breadfruit people them who don't want to see the work of our Father to go through. Oh my Lord, give thanks, Omega. Did I answer your question, my beloved, or you wanted more info?
If you have, I mean, as much clearance as you can give on it, because it's really a subject that's really cloudy, you know, like the understanding widely, you get a lot of different answers and things like that. So I think the more we could talk about that is the better, because yeah, in the argument,
I
Pretty a moment. I would touch one. We started on the topic of what? Adultery, right?
Yes.
And I didn't speak of the number one adultery, you know. It was yes, when we leave our God and go to a different God.
Yo, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right?
And
Right.
yes,
That's
an
the number
honorable
one.
priest. Just to touch up on the black and white. If you're not black, you're white. I always also look at things that sometimes not everything is literal. Some things are symbolic, right?
Right.
And if we look at black versus white, what the blackness would be to hold your natural creational knowledge, and then the white would be that Babylon teaching. You understand what I'm saying? Or adoption ways. You know what I mean? So Black people is either you have a conscious Black person or you have them that live under the adoption ways. You understand what I'm saying? I think maybe he could have meant it in regards to the Black nation, because the father, I heard him in a recording say, I will not teach you nothing good about the white man. You understand? So clearly, if he's saying if you're not Black, you're white, if he's talking about Black people, you understand? And he's just, as you said, or as you would say, we are our biggest problem right now. You know, a snake will always be a snake. So a white man will be him, you know, but when the lion forgets now that he's a lion, you know, that's the problem.
And our Father come to wake us up and tell us that a lion born in an alligator pond is still a lion.
Still a lion, natural.
Wake up, man. What happened to the dead in Christ? Okay, blessed my Lord.
No, go ahead. You go through.
The dead in Christ, my sister, you know, because people look at it as people who dead and gone under the earth, you know, but these are people who this new world order is happening right before them eyes and them not seeing it.
Natural.
All right. So I was going to say now on the topic of adultery, as it comes to, you know, with the term, the definition as far as, you know, mixing races and things like that now. All right. So I'll ask this question. We're going somewhere with this. And so if the man said that he would rather a Black man or a white man with a Black heart than a Black man with a white heart. Now, does that mean that every nation, every set of people has Black and white? So like even say a European could be a Black man and a Chinese could be a Black man.
It would be ways, you know, it would be ways, liberty, you know, people that really love the Black race. That's why the Father tell you that a remnant of every nation shall be saved, because it is the wicked white world that causes the problem, my brethren.
Right.
The wicked white world that caused the problem, you know, and create a system that has caused the world in chaos, you know, divide and rule, you know.
So, yes, priest, you know, to add on, honorable priest, to what you're saying, when I read the Black Supremacy Handbook, right, not the second edition, but the first edition, the original one, right, it has chapter 6 in it, right? And the first paragraph in chapter 6, the father writes, the spirit of the Black God is the truth and right that dwells in all flesh of people. Okay, so if we say is now, which makes sense, because if we say that the Black is the foundation, right, and we know that we talk about Black as being God, and when we refer to white, Asians, and these other people, we're referring to those that deal with the spirit of truth and right as being Black. as acknowledging the spirit of the Black God. You know, that's what I would get, because the original blacks in the original Black supremacy there, right? It states that the Father wrote, the spirit of the Black God is the truth and right that dwells in all flesh of people. So to me,
pardon me. With that being said, now the truth and right that's in all people. So that means any nation, any man could be a Black man, any woman could be a Black
no,
woman.
not necessarily a Black man. It wouldn't be literal. It cannot be literal, because we look at life in spiritual and temporal, right? So we're talking about the spirit, the truth and right in them, where you can meet an Asian man who's willing to declare that, yeah, we done did the Black world wrong and we owe the Black world justice. We want to deal with those white flesh that come and declare the natural reality of the world, that yes, our ancestors created a messed up system that disadvantaged the people of the world. You understand? That's the truth and right. A white man who's willing to marry a white woman and say, I want to live in Europe and deal with European affairs and leave African people and trade with them as equal people. You know, we want to deal with people who deal with equality, truth and right, humanity.
Yeah, equality.
Yeah. Equality, you know? Yeah, that's God. That's the spirit of God.
So, all right then. So now, all right. So if all right, Marcus Garvey said every man sees God through their own spectacles. Yes?
Yeah.
The European God should look like him. The Chinese God should look like him. The African God should look like him, and the Indian God would look like him as well. Now, this is confusing, and I would just like to get clearance, because
what if
King
Freddy,
Emmanuel?
What if that white man or that Indian man or that Chinese man saying praise the Black God?
What if? That's what I'm trying to get to, because if Marcus Garvey, our Trinity, you know, our prophet, said that everybody should see God through their own spectacles. Now, what does that really mean? Because we're talking about truth and rights now, the truth.
That is that, my Lord. Again, you know,
the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that everyone comes from Africa. Every creation on earth. So everything, that's the truth. So the truth is that they must acknowledge Black as God. That is the truth.
That's
you
the
see,
truth.
But that's worshiping outside of themselves, though.
It's not outside of themselves. It's to acknowledge truth.
It's just to acknowledge the truth.
It's to acknowledge the true spiritual self of sense of themselves, because to be white now is not just it's a literal thing, right? Which is a skin color, European. To be European, right? European God. What is a European God? What is an Asian God? Because white Asians is, you know, these are groups of people doing, but the whole point is, the truth is that everything starts from Africa. So they got to reverence Black people.
Well, I don't debate that. I don't debate that, and I'm not debating
and what is the Black God? The Black God is truth, right, love, justice.
Right.
You understand?
You got that. Let me go through. So now, with that being said, though, all right, from what I've heard, because I didn't never meet King Emmanuel to hear him say it, you know, himself, but we have elders on here who can, you know, give clearance if what I'm saying is not true. In some point in time, it was said that King Emmanuel, people were coming to see him because they wanted to see God. He said for them to look in the mirror, to see God in themselves. Now, when a European person who has white skin and straight hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever the case may be, there's not just them, I'm just using them as a reference. It could be a Chinese person or an Indian person or whatever type of person. Now, they're supposed to look in the mirror and see a physical flesh, because we're not dealing with just a spirit God, right? That's what sets us apart from the Christian church. So now in flesh, in spirit and in truth, the truth is the flesh, where you see what is real. This person is looking and they're seeing a Black God through their own spectacles.
No, that when they look in the glass, they go and see who
themselves.
Who they are.
So then are they seeing a white God?
Pretty beloved. The facts remain that when it touched the God now, right? They will, if, as the Empress said before, you see, as long as they accept truth, my brother, they would know that, well, they are a family of the black God.
Natural.
Or black men,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
because naturally we are family, one family. But it goes down the line and they have to accept that. You see? This is why the man is saying, oh my Lord, them favor, honor them father and them mother, and this is what they're not doing.
Right.
You understand, my brethren?
Yes, my Lord.
Else fundamental human rights would be ministered, my Lord. I and I would be at home, full joy in ourselves.
But Daniel, do you get the understanding of what that are you saying towards?
I do, and I'm not. And when listen, my argument is not because this is how I feel. It's more so just to bring any question that anyone might have, where because
Absolutely.
the way it's termed is really kind of confusing, because what we learn as black and white is what we see, you know what I mean? Not dealing with like no spirit or nothing like that. We know when somebody says a black man, you don't think of a European, you think of somebody with black skin, you know? So now when we talk about from Bobo Shanti perspective, that there's only black and white. So then there's all these different shades of flesh. So we now have to really go into it and really address it from a lot of different angles, because this is questions that one would have if they don't understand fully, you know, where Emmanuel was coming from. So don't take it like I don't understand, or that I'm arguing with you or debating with you.
No, beloved, no.
Go into it so that
Beloved.
everybody who's listening can hear and understand, and
Right.
not have questions about the subject once we're done, you know?
That's true.
My
That's
Lord,
true.
Prophet Daniel, could you invite other ones in on the discussion, my Lord, please? You know,
Yeah,
brethren and
this is a
sisters,
reasoning.
please.
This is the reasoning. So everybody, it's best if like say if you have noise in your background, if you keep your microphone muted. But if you have something you want to say, feel free to unmute and speak whenever you are ready to speak. You don't have to raise your hand or anything or ask permission. Just speak. It's freedom, you know.
Right, my Lord.
Yes,
Give thanks, Bobo.
Truly. Sorry. So yeah, I'm just really trying to be clear, because you know when we say black and white now, we normally would think black is from Africa and white is from Europe, and yellow is from China and red is from America, and you know, so we in saying Bobo Shanti now, I personally had a reasoning with a European person who told me he was an Ethiopian, and that confused me, because the way I know Ethiopian is that it means sunburned face. Sunburn, black, you know what I mean? So when he said that he's an Ethiopian of all terms, I mean, that to me was a little confusing. Because I didn't argue, I'm not arguing with him, but I would like to know how he could define, like, how can you back that up?
He will tell you that he is Abraham's seed.
He's an illusionist, though, because he's not an Ethiopian. He's a European man, and that's the dishonesty that a lot of the other nations are coming into Bobo Shanti with, you know? And we have to dispel the ignorance that they're coming in with, because you're not an Ethiopian. I see a lot of them, you know, claim these kind of heritages, because you have to experience the spirit of truth, right? Truth is God. You see it.
You say Omega again. I hear at one of the times that I say, if the white man come and say he is black, you know, who is anyone to contradict that?
Well, Honorable.
But really, you know, really Omega, what we're talking about, you know, is a teaching, you know, that takes in everyone. Everyone came out of the black, and everyone have to go forward in the black.
Honorable, it's not, you can't just come say you're black, you know, you have to prove that. Black is not something you say.
Well, that's it.
Black contains a historic experience. Black contains so much. It's not just
right forward to the live. It come forward to the live.
To the live, yes, to the live.
We had a brethren here called Prophet Yoel, right? A white, they would say white man. And what I see that man came here and did. Empress, not even that man. One night after him coming there, and that time service I go to whole night, you know, Empress. Whole night for a season, you know. And one night, me said the man ball out like a werewolf, you know.
Yes,
the 12 o'clock hour, you know.
I've seen
And-
another European have a difficulty with the Bingi too, honorable priest. I know exactly what you're talking about. It brings out a different nature in them.
And Omega, let me tell you, see, after that, the man come so calm, the man work, man, not even my own bro. Every empress, the man who carry water for, them time we carry water from a little distance,
I linked him recently.
Good,
I linked him. I
Yeah,
linked
man.
him about 4 months ago. And, I was saying, I said that he's probably the most honest white man that ever came to the Congress because he did
Oh,
work.
you know him personal?
Well, I linked him on Facebook because
Okay,
what happened, I had gone through some paperwork and I saw some letters he had written to King Emmanuel and some newspaper work that he had done when he
Okay,
had
yeah,
left the
man.
foundation. He came back to America and did the work, the governmental work. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that's what proved him. That's why I love him in a sense because he just didn't say he was black.
Yeah, it's the
He
work.
put
It's the
himself
work,
out there and he
That's
went
a made in man ambassador, That a made in man
Yes,
ambassador,
yes,
And
he
he
was.
went and he did the
But-
work,
But at the same time, the father still took it away from him and still said, "Let the black man to administrate to their own affairs." So, it was a learning and an understanding. And we have to look at the whole experience, not just the part. We have to look at his whole history, what happened with him. You understand? And at the end, the honorable.
Because you see, as long as Dada say,
Somebody a blessing.
blessed heart,
I pray thee, my Lord and Empress, priest and prophet.
blessed.
Lord and Empress, give thanks again for the reasoning. Give thanks again for the improvement of the reasoning. Because Mama Steve says that the reasoning same way. So I know priest just all say that the reasoning too. Give thanks again. I just want thing I left to say same way. Right on and right now. Man of right is God. Man of wrong is Satan. Woman of right is goddess. Woman of wrong is Satan. So it's just a man of right same way, Because when you put love and righteousness together, righteousness still mighty than them both. All same way.
Yes.
It's just righteousness same way. So I do give thanks to the reasoning, and that is all I love to see at this moment same way. More love and strength, and give thanks to the God and the same way, and give thanks to the love. Fine, I brother and sister. Forward.
Honorable, my Lord.
Give thanks, my Lord. Honorable Prophet.
My Lord.
Blessed love, my Lord and Empress. Good evening.
Blessed love, Omega.
Racialism. Jehovah God is the creator of all people and of all his children in one family. Racism is the reflection of the teachings of Jehovah God. Racialism is an evil spirit. Racialism, also called racism, is the belief that humans may be divided into two separate and exclusive biological entities called races, with different physical traits and traits of personality, intellect, morality, and other cultural and behavioral features. The Bible doesn't start off with the creation of a special or privileged race of people. When the first human is created, he is simply called Adam, meaning humankind. Adam and Eve represented all people of all ethnicities. Genesis 1 verse 26, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Genesis 1 verse 26 describe his creative action. So Jehovah God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. The image of God is either the mental or spiritual faculties that a person share with Jehovah God. The appointment of humankind as Jehovah God's representative on earth and a capacity to relate to Jehovah God. Being created in the image of God is a spectacular blessing. It is what distinguishes us from animals. Whether or not the image of Jehovah God in people were made of blood in the fall of Genesis 3. So from in the beginning, people of all races and ethnicity was created in the image of Jehovah God. The dignity and the equality of human beings are traced in scriptures to our creation. all people are created in the image of God.
True.
You can find that in Proverbs 14, verse 31. The one who oppresses the poor insults the maker. Proverbs 17, verse 5. The one who mocks the poor insults his maker. So those who take a superior attitude towards
Yes.
others is due to their socio-economic position, and thus oppresses or mock others are in fact insulting Jehovah God himself.
That's
So
right.
to insult or mistreat the people Jehovah God has created is an affront to him, the creator. The same principle applies to racialism, the unjustified self-establishment or superiority by one group that leads to oppression of the other group is an affront to Jehovah God. So the mocking of people Jehovah God created is a direct insult to the Black Christ in flesh. We are all creations of Jehovah God, created
Equal.
so we
Fundamentally.
have to view each other as such by treating all with dignity and respect. It's imperative and it's good manners as well, which is one of the mandates emerging out of Genesis 1 and Proverbs. Genesis 9 verse 18 to 27 speaks about the curse of Ham. So you can read it, read the curse of Ham. The son of Ham stated curses being on Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers. Noah then blessed Shem and Japheth, declaring, blessed be the Lord of Shem, may Canaan be the slave of Shem. So may God extend the territory of Japheth and may Canaan be his slave. So Ham in the Bible means black or burnt. Jehovah God commanded that descendants of Ham, black people, become slaves of Japheth, who was considered to be the white race. The curse was placed on Canaan and not on Ham. But they try to, you have to read the scripture good because they try to make you think that it was on the black race, but it was not on the black race. It was on the Canaanites. The curse was placed on Canaan and not on Ham. That's in Genesis 9 verse 20. That's why you have to read the scriptures, because one scripture going to say one thing, but when you go into the scripture, you're going to see the light of the dark path where it had it. So in Black Africa, the word Kemi means the black land. In Genesis 10, Israel is not mentioned as one of the ancient people. When Jehovah God first called Abraham, he was living in Ur. You are. Read it for yourself. Read it for yourself and trace it, and you will see how it traced right down to us. The whole same how we had to come back to come to be Israelites once again.
True, Honorable. Give thanks, Empress.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
Now, all right. So now bringing this all together, because the topic is adultery, right? And the adultery that we're talking about specifically as it relates to race and color and all of these different things, ethnicity, etc. Right now, if we've talked now about black and white and racism and all of these things, racialism, and you know, from what the Empress just said, we're all created equal and we're all created in the image and likeness of God and all that, right? Now, there is separation, right? In the sense that the fact that we acknowledge this term called race, right? To me, like His Majesty spoke about it, he said black and white are not terms really to use to identify man, you know? But so this concept of race that we acknowledge and give energy and power to by even acting like it is real is something that was created by European people, because it didn't exist before they, you know, traveled the world and started. Everybody else didn't look like them, and then they made themselves white and everybody else was not white. Right? So that put everybody who had melanin or more melanin than them into a category and put them into a category, which is generally the more privileged category up until this day. And anybody who looks closer to them, who has lighter skin, has more privilege than someone who has darker skin. In any society, that's the truth. So now when it comes to Bobo Shanti, right, and repatriation, Africa and nationhood and even if you want to consider race and all of that stuff, beyond spirit now and beyond, you know, the fact that we are created in God's image and likeness, there is a reality that we talk about a homeland. Now, is this homeland? And this is, I'm putting a question towards everybody. The homeland that we speak about, is it a homeland based on being an African, being of a phenotype and genetic makeup of what we know to be African? Or is that just someone who praises God is it only Bobo Shanti that's Africans because we you know have the right God, or like what are we talking, like, you know what I mean? Because all of this has to make sense together, you know what I mean? So what is it really we're talking about? So can a white person move to Africa and say that they're repatriated because they're righteous? Is
No.
Africa the home of righteous people? You know what I mean? Like what
Africa
this
is the home of
black and white
African people.
Right, but what's an African though? Because we just said now that everybody,
No,
if you have a
for
black
first and
heart
foremost,
and white skin, that you're a black person. So can a black-hearted white person
no.
go to Africa and say they repatriated? What, like,
Mm.
where do we draw the lines of what's black and what's white in reality, as it really affects us? Because this isn't about. I'm not talking about hate and love. I'm talking about.
We're talking about African people versus
I'm
European
talking about our homeland. I'm talking about repatriation now.
Yeah, we're repatriating African people,
Because we say this Congress says
descendants
the
of
land every
Africans.
man under his own fine and fig tree. So what is that really?
It's the descendant of African people that were enslaved and that
But
were brought in
everybody's
the
a
Western
descendant of
Hemisphere.
African people, right? Didn't we just say
No,
that?
we're talking. Listen, we're talking of, even if everyone is a descendant of Africa, we are defending human rights justice, right? What happened in history? Remember, we are doing with world history here a timeline, right? And when we call ourselves African people, okay, not just a human being, you're locating yourself in specific time and space. If you call yourself a European, you're locating yourself in specific time and space, you know? So basically, we're going to come out of dealing with this thing like an abstraction. You know, it's not just human beings. It's not just righteousness. We got to be very specific. And we're specifically here to defend African people. And African people is a very defined term. It's not, and people who have gone through a historic experience of oppression and injustice of unlike of any other group of people on earth. The most psychologically damaged people on earth. Okay.
So you man say international repatriation, you know.
Yeah, so African people were taken into international parts. African people were enslaved into Europe. They were enslaved into. So we are going to do international repatriation by gathering African people that are scattered abroad. We're not here to defend. We are here to defend. Every group of people have gone through something. But King Emmanuel is very clear when you read the Black Supremacy Handbook, you know. He said, my Lord, may I finish? Pray thee, can I finish? He wrote in his Black Supremacy Handbook in chapter 6, right? And I talk about the original Black Supremacy Handbook. He said, I have come to redeem my loved ones, you know, that have been held down by colonialism, imperialism, slavery, and capitalism, okay? And he talks about Hebrew nation, Black African people. And that is a very specific group, okay? He's very specific on who he came to save, okay? Yes, he came to save the world, but he's very specific that I came for my loved ones, which is African people who have gone through the greatest psychological damage in the world. So right now, our duty is to save ourselves before we can try and save Europeans. Europeans are good. When European Bobo come into the culture, they excel. They can come here, do business because they still belong to the dominant group of society. So we got to be very realistic on how we approach this. It is not to look at things religiously, it's to look at things through human rights justice. That's why he's the crown champion of human rights. And our human rights have been damaged.
All right, let's hear from the brethren.
Thanks again for the love. The man say international repatriation. The man say after the 58 years jubilee, you go send forward every man to them country to go world peace. So it's international repatriation. The man never get the man say he ain't coming to fight against flesh and blood. But he just principality in other places. So we ain't come fight against humanity. If you check the whole power this study,
Yes, I.
we all come from Africa. The white man is the black man and the black woman children. You see, what we come for now in this study, where we study, is love. Love, that is the only thing can carry with you. Love, 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 just love, 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 love.
Yes, I.
We come forward now to show them, we come conquer them with love, good over evil. I say, the best relationship anyone can have is one-on-one, straight with the Father, you know? The over, because they may be judged first hard. We say international repatriation is for everyone, every single person to come and get judged in front of the Chona, King Rastafari. And as Emmanuel Chonka is a black throne. The black man have to sit down for the throne of David, and the black woman have to sit down for the throne. This is I time now, Bobo Shanti time. Give thanks to the reason.
Yes, I.
So we are going to put the burden of the children of the oppressed to save the children of the oppressors. So that is the burden that we're going to put on ourselves as Black people, to come save the children of our oppressors, yet we haven't saved ourselves yet. I don't understand that one. You know, given the culture that the father said that if the place catches a fire, you know, you throw water on yourself first, you know, throw water around yourself. So I don't know if I'm going to say that I'm going to try and work to save European people or Asian people before I save my own. Charity begins at home.
Well, it's a self-save judgment anyway, you know, so.
And it's race first. Marcus Garvey said race first. So what does that mean? If I'm following the teachings of the greatest prophet born of a woman, what is race?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, honestly, I would take that to mean that even if someone, say, from another nation other than African came into this, then it would be their first priority to bring these teachings to their own people so that their own people could get this as well, as opposed to trying to bring it to us to teach us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
I could interject here.
My thoughts still go through.
The word race, when you flip those letters around, you get a word K. That's what we have to do, show love. He said, until the color of a man's skin becomes no more significant than the color of his eyes, and until the basic human rights is equally guaranteed to all without regard to race. Adultery is unfaithfulness to Jehovah God. It is having an undue fondness for the things of the world.
Pray the Honorable Empress.
Adultery,
as defined in the Melchizedek, as defined in the Melchizedek priesthood handbook, adultery over Shanti is mixing races, black to white to white, and Chinese to Chinese, etc. Anything other than that would be adultery. And then yeah. So I was clear that this isn't coming out of nowhere. This adultery that we're talking about when it comes to mixing races is from the priesthood handbook that this definition of adultery came. And that's why I feel like it's important for us to reason about it, because if we're saying that everybody can be black, then what is really adultery? If anybody, that means anybody could be with anybody and anybody can move to Africa. And yeah, I mean, like, it gets a little bit confusing. Go through.
Yes, Honorable Empress, you quoted Haile Selassie's speech there, till the color of a man's skin is no more. Let's put that speech in context. He was not speaking to African people when he made that speech. He was speaking to a group of white men. Okay? So that message there of racial purity and racial harmony and understanding to love was not being given to African people. Haile Selassie was addressing the United Nations, and he was addressing a group of white men. You know, so I can't use that to justify this multiculturalism that we're trying to bring in here, you know, and make it seem like everything is equal. No, the world will not be equal until Black people get their justice first. You see it, because everybody has.
Blessed love.
We were out for
a while.
Welcome.
So thank God we are back. So
Yeah.
could give us a little update, please.
Make her finish. Huh?
Okay.
Well, we was just reasoning about the topic of repatriation and how these terms, black and white and African and Ethiopian, all tie in to what we're defining as repatriation and every man to their own vine and fig tree, and adultery and all of this, just really sorting it out. So I don't think you missed very much, but what all was said is just, I stated that, does this mean that if anybody can be a black man, if they just choose to be the righteous and accept that the black man and woman, God and goddess and all of this, then all right, when it comes to repatriation, does that mean everybody, any set of people can move to Africa? And Ja Winston said that, international repatriation would mean that there's a 49 years or something in where everybody would be living in Africa. And then in the 50th year, the Jubilee, everybody would go home. Honorable Priest Headley, I'm pretty sure you was telling me the same culture the other day. So I was just really hoping that we could get to the bottom of it and make it clear, black and white and adultery as far as mixing. Because if everybody can be black, then does that mean that just like a Chinese righteous woman can marry a black African, I don't really know how to term it, because if we're saying everybody can be African and everybody can be black, then
The culture
Innovate.
definitely doesn't say that everyone
Every
is.
vine,
The culture
every
does not
vine,
to their own
every
vine.
vine to them own fig. Every vine to them own fig, my lord. In this time.
Yeah, so what does that mean?
And
though?
this is, remember, this is what, all right.
Yes.
Remember the Father say he comes to land forward everyone to their own vine and fig tree, to bring forward a fundamental world peace. Africa for the Africans, China for the Chinese, India for the Indian, Europe for the European, everyone within their own borders.
Mm-hmm.
As it was before. Because it was, remember, it's these British sea dogs, leave them home and come to our home, see us living in our splendor, right? And we take them in through love, right? They went forward, and they planned, and they was coming again, right?
Yes.
The Father sent the prophet to warn King Hezekiah and tell him that these people are, and he must not take them in the sanctuary, because these people don't praise the true and living God. And him disobeyed. Right? And after them leave, the prophet came back and asked him, did him say, him show them, and him say, for this, you and your people shall go into captivity. So they came back and took us out.
And that's the truth.
They came back and took us out.
They studied Africa before they came to take African people out of Africa. They write of it.
Who is they though? Like this is
the Europeans. The wicked European, them starting from the Vikings and all of them wicked people that are coming down. The British sea dogs.
All right. So the Europeans that are wicked now are white people.
Well, and then we learn about where do these things. The British, the Spaniards, the British, all of them people there.
I pray the man say something.
Yes, love.
Go through.
Okay, so first of all, it's not just the Europeans that came through. Let's not forget the Arab slave trade that took place, because they're the ones that started taking us out of Africa first.
Okay.
And they brutalized us just the same way.
Right.
And they're still doing these things today.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
What you would call those type of people?
Arabs.
I wouldn't call them Africans. I would call them Europeans.
They're Arabs.
Arabs.
They're Arabs. Arabs are Arabs. Europeans are Europeans. Asians are Asians. Africans are Africans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are very distinct, and yes, so in the true sense of human rights justice, if we're talking as African people, we want justice from the Arab Union and the European Union to a
Okay.
certain extent. Do you understand what I'm saying? So she's
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah, and
now,
so
this
so
is where
even when we talk about reparations, right, as African people, if the African Union or African leaders or African associations would come together and really talk about the justice owed to African people, you start with the Arab slave trade, then you come to the European, and then you even touch up with the Asians right now who are coming in with a different form of imperialism, you know, and that's the
Oh,
reality
yes, 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 yes,
So,
yes.
that we're
so
living.
now, if I may,
Yes,
all right.
yes.
Now when it comes to equal rights and justice, there's a certain set of people who, according to the terms defined by white supremacists, the ones who came up with this concept of race, of whiteness and blackness and all of these things, because we didn't ever call ourselves black before European people started calling us Negro, and other terms, etc. So according to their terms now, the European
Daniel Prady, we did call ourselves black because in Southern
no, we
Africa
didn't.
we call ourselves
no.
Abantu Abamnyama. Abantu Abamnyama,
Black.
Abamnyama means black, you know.
That's a totally different word sound. That's what I'm telling you. Not
But
to say
the
that
concept,
not to say that we didn't identify with the color that we know as black. But before there was Europeans, we never said we are black people. That word is a European word in general, right?
I mean, but
Not
we're
the
not
color.
black.
Not
We
the
see,
color,
this is,
but the word. But hold on.
remember, if we're gonna reason,
No,
we must
don't
reason with
let us
definition.
continue.
Can I
Let's
finish
reason.
my
Let's
point?
reason. Let's reason.
Let me finish my point. So
Empress DC,
wherever the word comes from,
Prophet
Europeans
Daniel, can I
are the
just
ones
come
who
in
call
there?
themselves white, and they called everybody else a different color and all of that stuff. Because nobody's actually white, nobody's actually yellow, nobody's actually red. You know what I mean? But we use those terms to define each other. Now, when it comes to equal rights, now when we talk about chattel slavery and the Ma'afa, the Atlantic slave trade, and even the Arab slave trade, is a certain set of people that were traded. Those are the people we call black people, African people. And when we say now that anybody can be black if they are righteous, then that means now, say a European who calls himself an Ethiopian could sing about "We want black man want go home now." You know what I mean? Like the songs that we chant in Nyabingi, they come and sing those same songs, and it's like, what are they really singing for? Because I mean, nobody captured you from your home and took you to another place and made you a slave. Because even the Europeans that were enslaved in the West or whatever, it wasn't because they were captured and brought here. It's because they were indentured servants and they'd come and work out their little time and then be free after a while. So the West for them was a place where they could do better than what they were doing in Europe. The West for a black person was a place where you're going to do worse than you were doing in Africa. And so that's why we need the justice. So now, where are we drawing the lines about black and white? Because we earlier said that everybody's equal. And there's no,
we're not saying that. We never say that, Jack Daniel. And I think the culture, when King Emmanuel made the statement, if you're not black or you're white, he was addressing black people. He wasn't addressing any other nation.
Well,
what does that mean? Because remember, he's very clear that his culture, I came especially for my loved ones, the Hebrew Israelites who've been held down. Hebrew Israelites, the specific African people, black, that went through the slave trade. So when King Emmanuel makes that statement, we have to be very clear. He's not addressing all nations of people. He's addressing those he came for.
Do you agree with that, Priest Headley?
Because he wrote that in his Black Supremacy Handbook, and I can.
No, I don't agree with that.
As a prophet kind of history, you know, because when you study, when you meditate the book and stuff, the man see how the salvation Israel can come out of Zion. Israel, God is Israel king, you know. You see, when the captivated people return, Jacob will rejoice and Israel will be glad. Psalms 14 is a prophecy and history will become here for fulfill, you know.
It talks about the people that were taken in ships. No other group of people were taken in ships into bondage except for African people. And the Bible is clear about that. And it drops them in the Isles. You know, that's the Caribbean. You see it? The Bible speaks of that in Revelation somewhere. I can't be, I'm not as specific like that, but I know it's there. I just have to find it,
Well, let me ask.
It's two sets. It's Indians and it's Africans that were taken by slave ships. And also, just to go back a bit with what we were reasoning about earlier, blessed love family. There's Abantu, there's Amandia, there's Amapunu, and then now, yeah. So it when I think Prophet Daniel was right when he's saying black was adopted when white people came in, because that's when we start saying Abantu Abamnyama. You get. So then, therefore, from that perspective, then yes, black as a color doesn't exist. It's only Abantu. Then it only exists when white people come into contact with black people, and we must not forget that. Okay, here in Africa, particularly, I'm gonna go in 1910 here in South Africa. Chief Albert Luthuli, which is one of the founding members of the African National Congress, which is the current governing party in the country, he explains how the Caucasians came and how they separated blacks. So when they come here, they find Abantu, and Abantu, they are living together as one, right? So because they were looking at the natural resources, then they started formulating the religion so that they can start separating the people. So from there, those people that confirmed with the Caucasians, they were known as Zulu Christians, and then or African Christians. And the ones that did not confirm, who were Abu Albert Luthuli and so forth, were called Zulu heathens, right? So from there, they start formulating churches so that they can have a uniformity of how things need to run. So now they send people to church on Sunday. From Sunday, then they start doing that thing. From Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, people start working. And yeah, that's how they come into contact. And they start killing people. They taking land. I mean, there's a video I shared earlier of one of the leaders of the AVP, or yeah, it's AVP. They had a swastika as well as their symbol. So those people were adamant that this land belongs to them, and they were cutting land as much as we saw how the Berlin Conference was cutting the land. They were also cutting the land, saying Johannesburg belongs to the Britons, and the other parts was Transvaal, where it belongs to the Boers. And they were fighting amongst each other. You know, they had a war amongst each other, and they did not like each other, even if they were Europeans. And they sidelines all the African. They move all Africans from places where there's natural resources from gold, where they found platinum. So even up until today, they still own those places. So there's now, when you come here in Africa, there is no gray area in terms of who is a Caucasian, who is a Mongolian, who is a Indian. So now here it is clear. So then, because these people came here and they found Africans here. So from this perspective in Africa, Africans are people like I and I here, sunburned skin people with noses, which represents the Bantu, or North Africa, where you found the people with wavy hair, like the Somalians and the Abyssinians, you know, and yes, and this is how now you start finding the Indians who are being born from those North Africans, right? And then you find Ainai here from the bottom, which talks about where the origins of people is. But now, after a certain period of time, then there was separation, because those Caucasians were living in caves, and they started losing pigmentation, and the color started changing of their eyes, and it became blue. And from there, because they were living in survival in a concrete jungle, we know that history, where they killed for everything that they needed. And when they started traveling the world, that's when they started killing. So yeah, it is clear here who is not African and who is African. Just that's my words.
Honorable, let's say.
Yes, so yeah, honor any of the elder and Empress Lily Mae, Priest Headley, Empress Maisie. I'm calling on you because I'm asking now for clearance regarding King Emmanuel's words specifically, as far as, you know, there's only black and white, right? If he was talking to the whole world, there's a whole lot of different shades of people. Earlier we established that black, we're talking about truth now, that we're dealing with God and everything like that. So if someone is, to define black that way would be that if a person is righteous and accepts that they come from, you know, our common ancestor, our common African ancestor, and that the black people are the first and all of that stuff. But now when it comes to equal rights and justice and repatriation, how now can we explain what King Emmanuel said about black and white, and tie in everything as far as like when we say our own vine and fig tree, and you know, 7, 9, or 13 miles of Black Star Line of ships, who are those ships carrying and stuff like that, and where are they going? Please, you know, one of the elders, if you could kind of give some clearance from your perspective of what that really means.
Honorable, I'm not an elder, but I listened to your question, and there's this contradiction that you keep putting about how with this black or white, because if you cannot understand what he's saying in the proper context, the whole understanding becomes construed.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
So the elders, now you're asking them, when King Emmanuel made that statement, if you're not black or you're white, was he addressing the whole world, or was he reasoning amongst brethren who are in front of him who are black people? And we got to put that in context.
Well, that's what I'm
this is why it's so important. It's very important when people say just say, and what is King Emmanuel, to put things in proper context of history, time, place, what was happening, because these statements can cause a lot of contradictions that are unnecessary. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you hold that he said that if you're not black or you're white as a statement regarded to everyone in the world, that's a very dangerous thing. You understand? But if you hold it that he explained that to African people, that listen, if you're not black, you're white in terms of the kind of consciousness you carry, you know, because he came to teach you black consciousness. The God in flesh consciousness is black consciousness, you know, the black God, you know, which is the spirit of truth, right, you know, love, and all these upright qualities of humanity that must be exemplified by all in creation in order for there to be world peace, you know? So we got to be very, so the key thing here in your question, and for the elders not to feel jammed up or to feel pressured to make a statement that, you know, the best they could say is, you know, when King Emmanuel, is to honestly ask them, when he said that, to put that whole statement in the proper context. Were they there? If you're not there, if you're not there.
That's what I'm asking them, but we have to let them speak because nobody really.
But then the first question is, if they were not there to hear the man literally, how are they going to answer that?
Let's let them speak and see what they say, please.
So, Priest Headley, did King Emmanuel speak to you literally yourself and say, my Lord, if you're not black, you're white? And was he addressing, how would you answer that question?
Priest Headley?
His microphone is
unmute, my Lord. Unmute the microphone, please, my Lord.
Blessed art.
My Lord, yes, I.
Okay, yes. Yes, from my perspective, right? The reality of that is, my Lord,
come and get the culture.
we came and we get that teaching. And the meaning of that reteaching to Iman is the ways, right? Because we have two ways.
Natural.
the white world ways, and we would say, well, the wicked white world ways, right?
Mhm.
That we see even our own Black people adopting this time, and the Black supremacy righteous ways, which was the original ways. You know, this is why the Father say his kingliness is not of this world, but is of the world to come, because this is a world of justice, and his world is a world of equality. In equality, we have a total balance, you know, and this is why His Majesty had to ratify that charter, which was drawn up from the 17th century. He ratified that charter on the 10th of December, 1948, you know, and give it forward to the United Nations to minister to the world of people. Yes, you know, so what I'm saying now is the teaching is that remember that the Congress, the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress, Church of True Free Divine Salvation, stand to land forward everyone. First, stands for Fundamental Freedom, Redemption, International Repatriation. To land forward everyone to them own vine and fig tree, right? To bring forward a fundamental world peace. Africa for the Africans, China for the Chinese, India for the Indians, Europe for the Europeans, right? And down here, and all the islands for the Arocs, the Caribbean, the Tainos, and all of these people. So a remnant of every nation shall be saved. Return home to learn the teaching of Black supremacy, and we will have a 7-year Sabbath. Then we will have 49-year Sabbath. Then on the 50th year of Jubilee, everyone return to their own position or borders. Because it will be one teaching over the universal earth as it was before. Nation shall not meditate war anymore. There shall be peace upon the earth, equality for all. The lamb, the lion, everyone shall be together.
You
What
know,
do you have to say?
oh, wow. Honorable priest, I'm be honest, you know, I don't want no white folks or no other people in Africa, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know how they're going to be celebrating with us, you know, I'm being honest with you, you know, because to the kind of hurt and damage that Black people have gone through right now, you know, no,
wow.
it's going to be it's going to be different. I don't know how we're going to work that out.
That tolerance, eh?
we have a whole heap of tolerance, but you see our children are getting shot in the streets like they're flies, you know? Yeah, so, you know, my
yes,
Lord,
yes.
them hurt there.
And when we get equality,
unbearable.
my sister,
so
when we get equality, listen to me, my sister. They say, you know, right now down here we are in slavery. Our people is being paid $50 US dollar a week. And the middle class or the little higher class is getting $100 US a week. You know, right here.
Okay, global African people live under European domination. So what you're speaking of is a reality that's here in America, is a reality in Africa. Okay. So we all living under the same reality. Understand? So right now, I'm not trying to seek no justice for no other than the children of my oppressors. You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to seek my equality, understand my
for
justice.
Our children.
Yeah.
Children.
For my ancestors, my people, my children, and my children unto the 7th generation. You understand? And I'm not fighting no Indian person who's trying to claim back his Indian land around here, the natives.
Right,
you feel me?
Right.
I'm not fighting no white man who wants to say, you know what? I'm good right here. I'm an African that then went through the changes and I changed to adapt to my environment, and now I have these features that label me as a European. You understand? So all these are my children around here, and I understand them. You feel me? But they have changed. You see, Malcolm was saying sometimes the fruit falls so far away from the tree that become so bruised. So some of them then went through changes when they started to leave Africa. They went through changes that changed their nature too. You see, and they become real like vampires, you see what I'm saying, upon their people, you see, because they had to learn to survive in that cold environment. So it creates a certain personality in them. You feel me? A survival. You know, in Africa, everything is plenty, everybody chilling. So we don't have a survivalist mentality. So these people, what they put our people through slavery and colonization, the greatest cycle, we don't have time to try and help everybody. We got to try and help our people. So the Congress must be very clear. You see, that we are working on the human rights justice ode to African people that went through the victimization of colonization and slavery. And even as the Empress said, the Arab slave trade. Yes. You see, we got to be specific and very clear. And we love everybody. I love everybody. I'm not here to hate. Hate is a weak emotion. You feel me? And I was not created in hate. You see, so I don't hate anybody, but I seek my justice. You feel me? Because you owe me a lot.
No,
Empress Lily May.
Great. Yes, sir.
Honorable Empress Lily May.
Okay.
But do you have anything you would like to say on the topic? I would like to, hear some different perspectives, from other ones on the line, and everyone else. You're free to the reason if you want to unmute at any point. Just don't speak over anyone, and yeah, you're free to speak whenever there's an opening. Oh, she muted. Okay, Priest, have you had something you wanted to say, my lord?
Honorable Priest Matthew say he would love to say a word.
All right.
Honorable, bless the love,
bless the
my
Lord.
Lord and Empress. Give thanks for the down setting. Give thanks for everything that's said and done from creation until this blessed hour. Give thanks for everything. I have something to ask on the topic. The topic is adultery. Isn't it? It's a question.
It is.
Isn't it adultery why black people is now split up? Why black people is now split up? While we even here in slavery?
I will leave our God and take on it.
And every prophet Daniel.
I don't have the answer.
I never ever see.
My Lord, you see me, I have my own opinion. I'm going to share it with you, And I say, no, God, you see, let me tell you something. I have a lot of difficulties with a lot of things, psychologically speaking. You see what I'm saying? In order for you to enslave a people, you got to get into their mind. You got to get them to believe that they committed some great sin that separated them from right. You see, and then pray thee, understand my history. I didn't grow up in the Bible, okay? But I respect it and I love it, right? So there's a lot of things that I find in the Bible difficult for me to accept as a Black person, you see, because I search myself and I look in Africa and I say, what did my people do? You see, for us to really, deserve such, and so I can't accept that Black people really did something. I can accept that, Europeans for economic purposes enslaved a group of people. And I can accept that they had a thinking. They outthought us. They used their minds, You see, better than Black people at that moment in time that still keeps us in this place. So everything for me is psychological. You see, it may not be always a spiritual thing or a spiritual explanation, but there is a psychological and a natural reason as to why, every animal in nature must survive. And so we're dealing with European survival. They didn't have nothing in Europe. It was cold. Africa had everything. You understand? So they had to come and take, and they did that. And you see, somebody who has brains will always use their brains to outdo you. That's why it's important to use your heart and your mind for your kingdom.
Empress.
Yeah.
Even in the Western world, get questioned about the Bible sometimes. But can we hear enough things? But the Almighty said, no care what language or what it written, it's still one and the same. We know say religion cause a lot of war. We know say a lot of people dead for the Sabbath through Christianity, through certain things. But Marcus Garvey come again and say, right now, are only in a religion and science go with is our only way out of this, what the European have done to we, through what them do, to what them put in our way, and the veil where them up in our eye. So if we not use certain important tool what them have, like the Bible is the number one, even the dark world use the Bible. Dark world use the Bible and use certain things out of it. So if we not use that number one tool, we're not gonna see anywhere out to me.
No, I agree. The Bible is the greatest psychological book in the world. You know, they use the one book to enslave Black people. You can use the same book to free them. Like, as you can see, King Emmanuel used the same Bible to free our minds. You understand? So it's not about the Bible, it's how you think. You see, because it says you have to have a predisposition. His Majesty said you must read the Bible with a clear conscience. As King Emmanuel said, read the Bible with the understanding for the right that will save you. So you have to deal with understanding. So understanding is fostered by a lot of different things. You feel me? So you got to work on our minds and how we think, you see, and colonization and slavery broke down the mind. So your mind deals with perception, how you perceive, because the same Bible, the same Matthew chapter 1 can be used to enslave you and it can be used to free you. So it's important, the mind, you know? So as I said, I don't approach and look at the history of African people from a biblical perspective. I look at it from a historic, like history. You know, the Bible is a part of history. I said we could use the Bible. And let me show you something, Matthew, right? When I read the Bible and you read the story of Christ, right? And you read this Christ, 12 disciples, and what they do, they went and influenced the world. What do you get from that story? You are supposed to get that when you want to work on something, you don't need everybody. You and a couple of brethren can come together and move the world. That is the message that we are also supposed to get when we read the Bible. You see, the psychological aspect of things. You see it. So when you study, you say, so these brethren got together. It wasn't a whole heap of them, but look at what they did. They influenced the world. So Black people have to understand, if you're going to remove ourselves from the domination of Europeans, we have to believe that we can break ourselves out of that. And you see, a lot of people don't believe that they can come out of European oppression. A lot of people don't believe they can manifest international repatriation. A lot of people don't believe they can manifest. You see, they're just using the words, but to believe is to understand and to apply systems and behavior. See,
no, it Empress.
If
That's why
people
you know
believe,
they just do it.
yeah, you do it, you behave accordingly, but you see people not behaving accordingly because they don't believe. So when they read the Bible, they're just reading for the emotions. Don't read for the emotions, read for the psychological understanding that you have the power to overcome. And if a couple of people coming together, believing in themselves and believing in each other, they can change the world. That is the story of Christ that you must understand also in the Bible. You understand? And that's my interpretation of everything.
Give thanks. This is why in this time you say the Father leave what? A governance, you know? And
right.
32 people, you know?
Yes.
You know, must govern, you know, and see what's reaching us. Eh? You see what's reaching us? You know, he put the government on our shoulder and what happened? People run from it.
Because they didn't believe.
Everyone stay far looking on and saying, but they don't want to come and do it. The governance, you know, remember it's a government to government affair, you know.
Natural.
If we are not functioning as a government to deal with this evil world, remember this is the our governance, you know, my brethren. And that are the ex-governance of the world. At them we are dealing with. But the people who have to come and do the work now, them the one side, I don't know if it's not the time yet. But I am waiting on them. We need the ministries to be functioning with people who man of bigger fears and all of these things. To go and face these little stupid people.
So, my Lord and Empress, now on the topic now of adultery. Black to black and white to white and Chinese to Chinese. All right? And righteous is one form of black and white is one form of wicked. And all of these things, right? Now, how do we determine when it comes to the race of it now? Because all of it, like as we said before, when it comes to repatriation, there's only a certain set of people that would stay in Africa and be classified as Africans. Even after the Jubilee, certain people would leave and some would stay. So can two righteous people of two different races be together now? Is that because that's really what I feel like the Melchizedek Handbook is talking about. Not so much about their behavior, but more so their genetic makeup. Am I right?
Well,
yes,
yes,
genetic
because
makeup.
don't everyone was supposed to have their own borders?
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Africa for the African.
China.
Right.
China for the Chinese.
So now
India for the Indian.
So yeah, and that's why when a European person who I know for a fact is European by looking at him tells me he's Ethiopian, it confuses me. But when we start talking about this, because it's like, how could you say you're Ethiopian? That means when you say Ethiopian, that attaches you to a landmass, some borders, as you say, which the ocean is really the only borders.
When the Bible again, right? The Bible again. Because of certain teaching of the Bible, these people claim to be family of what? Abraham or someone or something. So they say by that they have a right to be there.
Children of conquistadors, honorable Prince. We're not playing with that. You see, let's be honest. Just because some Bobo or white Bobo says they're that, it doesn't make them clear thinking, you know. You understand? So you can declare all you want. It doesn't make you an illusionist. It doesn't make you not holding Balaam culture, you see? And I think that for you, a child of a conquistador to come say and claim Africa, you know, everyone can claim Africa to a degree, you know, and you have to understand the degree upon which you should claim it, you know? And I think that's fair, you know.
Because we are the father and mother of them. Right? Because it's just so they used to come to Jerusalem and full joy.
Yes, because before colonization and slavery, you know, Chinese people used to come to Zimbabwe, you know, and
we're free to come to Jerusalem.
You have the Oriental trade in Africa predates colonization and slavery, you see. So we have had interactions with these people before we were subjugated into a place of oppression, you feel me? So if we go back to creation and hold ourselves, we were earth owners. We circumvent the earth. You see it. That's our history and culture as African people. You see, so we just have to claim back that glory.
Yeah, because of their evil ways, why the father said, all right, this is why the honorable prophet come and say, you know, real purity. And I see it, because of what them do to us, because of our love.
Yeah, because of love.
You know, same say love overthrow, and in this time we can't do that again.
We have a hand raised, Honorable Ja Mpo. You can speak, my lord. You already unmuted your mic.
Blessed are.
Our heart of love, give thanks.
Blessed are.
Give thanks for together we walk, together we talk, together we wash one another's feet. And some people say we have no need. Yes, we are for Almighty's commandment. Holy Emmanuel, I. Our heart of love unto the honorable family. Give thanks for the honorable prophet, you know, and the honorable priest. Together they walk and together they talk, you know. Blessed, you know, addressing to the topic at hand, you know. I just had a question, you know, as one Rasta unto another, you know. I find that the topic of adultery, you know, even for a man in my stature, you know, I find it's a very personal thing, you know. When we talk of adultery, it's being desirable and being temptuous, if that's the word, you know. So I was wondering, you know, since the topic is there, if it's all right, you know, to even ask a question to the Honorable Right Priest Headley as an elder, you know, to counsel us, you know, as youth who are, you know, in need, you know, of the culture, you know, because, you know, the Bible, you know, it's a language, you know, it's just language. We just use it as a common denominator so we can all come together in one word, one sound, and one power until the time comes until we can publish for ourselves. You know, so yeah, honorable family, blessed love.
My Lord,
Honorable Priest Tedley, is it okay if I can ask a question?
my Lord.
And I give thanks, my Lord. You know, I recently came to the Bobo Shanti Order in 2018, you know, from such time. And yeah, it's been one of those journeys, you know, where you find that the commandment, you know, which the Father has set upon us, you know, is that we should not, you know, mix with other races, right? My Lord.
You get that as a commandment?
Yes, my Lord. To Exodus 20.
That is fornication, my Lord.
Fornication.
Sure.
Fornication. Yes, my Lord. So when we see in this time, you know, we find that many nations are coming in, you know, to the Black Nation, you know, to take and, you know, to on a mission to keep us in captivity, you know. So in a way, is it right for us as a Bobo nation, you know, to administer unto the white nation, you know, like even in an instance you find someone get hurt, you know, and then they come to you for counseling. So in such things, my lord, you know, on the topic of adultery, I don't know if my question is clear. Do pardon me, you know.
My Lord,
what would you really like to know? If someone is sick, if you can administer to them?
Yes, my lord, you know,
If
like
they're white.
If they are white?
Yes, if
they're
you're
white, you know, Chinese and Indian, yeah.
Oh, I would say yes, my Lord.
Yes.
My Lord, when you say Bobo, you
Yes,
say
my
love.
Lord.
When you say Bobo.
What the Father really dealing with, you know, is life, you know, my Lord.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And what we can do to save life and prolong life, you know? So from the eyes in a position where you can give an helping hand, find my Lord. You know, this is why the Bible again, you know, come forward and then give us a lot of parables, you know? And show us that there was a man who was on the road and, you know, how much one passing by, you know? You see? And even some priests and all of that passed through, and this man who they would say, well, you know, take him up and carry him and look after him and take him to the inn and pay him thing and, you know, yeah. So it's good, you know, my brethren, you know, it is better to do good, even on the Sabbath day. If you have to do good, do good.
You know, for this word sound and power that I give us unto us the youth, for it's the elders that know the way, and it's the youth that have the strength. Marcusai,
Selassie, yeah.
Rastafari. I give thanks, my Lord.
To be perfect in love, my Lord, you have to love your very enemy. Yeah. But you're going to feed him. You're going to feed him with a tall spoon still, you know? Yes, you're going to be very cautious in this time, my brother.
Yes.
My Lord.
Very cautious.
Because I know, you know, in Africa, from South Africa, you know, I grew up in this land, you know, in what they call a rainbow nation, where you find all the people are there.
Okay.
Yes, just the same.
Yeah.
So I find like the issue, or the touching issue of us Africans, you know, is how we address ourselves unto them, you know, because even this before this reasoning, you know, I was counseling a white man. In a way, it was like as if I was trying to, what I would want to do or what I would need to do unto my beloved brother and sister. you know, but you find our brothers and sisters psychologically, you know, because of what the Honorable Right Priest Elder Dougie has said in the previous study group, that, you know, we have all gone through the transatlantic slave trade, you know, the oppression, the colonialism, you know, all that hate, you know, we all went through it, you know.
Beloved,
So
pray thee, beloved, we are a people that is studied, you know, my Lord. Right? They study us, and what they have done, they have gone into this thing called genetically modified things, my brethren, and hybrid. So we are being modified through the food that we eat if we don't plant our own food, beloved.
Honorable, my Lord, Jampo and Jagiven, Javusi, I would like for us to share, like, let's take, for example, the colored community in South Africa. So now in Africa, colored people are what we consider mixed people, you know, black and white. They have a history somehow in the history. Right. The European may have raped African women, and, you know, that production there will, they have a whole racial hierarchy in Africa of colored people. All right, they're not white, they're not black, they're mixed. Okay, and usually it's segregated. The colored people marry colored people. All right, so now to Javusi, Jampo, and Jagiven, as native African black men who are not mixed, who are not coloreds, do you think it's adultery for you to go with the colored woman, a colored empress?
It depends.
Javusi and Jagiven, Jampo, how would you, as this is a complex I'm talking about in Africa as Bobo Shanti, especially in Southern Africa, that we, you know, ones may not be clear about out here, but we have these kind of racial hierarchies. So how would you answer that, Honorable?
Give thanks again for another moment. It's a mixture of a race, so you refer as a hybrid. The experience is when the Caucasians was forcing themselves on Africans, so then came the colored nation. The greatest prophet refers to the colored nation as mulatto Dundus in the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. So I, man, as an African, I'll not mix with that, with the colored nation. It's not purity. That's my that's Aina perspective. That's how Aina is looking at it, and I think it is also a perspective generally in the country. That's what every Aina understand, because though also how South Africa actually is also put in locations. There was this called Group Areas Act. I think it came out around 1913, where different people were put in, or I would say different races were put in different places for specific reasons, either to make it for them to be late from work or to just disorientate. Like if an African was traveling from work and taking time and coming back, leaving very early, taking time and coming back, then they would not have time to spend time with the children. But that's another topic. Then now an African is put in an area, for instance, in Pretoria, there's Mamelodi, and then there's Easteres, and then there's Silverton. There is maybe East Lane as well. So these, in Mamelodi, where I come from together with Chris Given and a lot of other brothers and sisters, there's Africans that live there. And then in Easteres is Coloureds. In East Lane, it's the Caucasians. So now, then we grew up in such a kind of environment. So therefore, then the mixture on that will not. It's not pure. It will be hybrid. It's just continuation of what the prophet was emphasizing, that it's a reminder of slavery. But I'd just like
But
to take a
Anna,
moment. I want to attend to the child. Can I ask Priest Given to continue on this? Pardon, or
Yes.
Priest Zera or Jampo?
Yes.
Blessed
Zera.
Blessed.
Honorable.
One moment.
That's Jah. Rastafari. Jazira.
Wait, one moment. Let us keep order. So Priest Zera and Priest Jah Given had their hands raised. Priest Zera was the first to raise his hand, so if we can allow him to speak first, and then we'll go to Priest Given, and we'll move, according to order, and give everyone a chance to speak.
Blessed love, family.
Blessed love, my Lord.
Royal Ethiopian Nation, World Kingdom. Give thanks, my Lord and Empress, for life blessings, mighty life giver. God in three, Prophet, Priest, and King. Thou art divine mother of creation. Holy Queen Omega, I.
Selassie,
Rastafari. Greetings, my Lord and Empress. I am Honorable Priest Zera here in South Africa. Upon the topic, what I would first like to share in the experience is that in South Africa, when you are black, you must stay back. When you are a colored, you can stick around or may stick around. But when you are a white, you can go through. So that experience teaches that within this context of adultery, my Lord and Empress, is that black for black, listening at the ancient, and giving the culture, and having this experience now as an African in Africa who's struggling, because of being crowded by these races that I so pray and wish they go home. Before 49 years that I'm listening to, I so pray that Jah give me the strength to humble for that 49 years, because it's like Jah, right now in South Africa in particular, Chinese are becoming more than blacks. So I'm hearing from the elders that I still have to have more tolerance than that I'm getting, than I'm losing right now out of this race. That is just my part and my experience for now, Honorable, upon the topic. I do give thanks, my Lord and Empress.
Honorable, my Lord. We'll allow for Honorable Priest Jah Given to speak next, as his hand was raised. Honorable Priest Given, can you unmute yourself, my Lord?
Give thanks, my Lord, glorify for coming in, life over death, over evil, I and I.
Right.
Yes, man say reality over fantasy, Come out of fantasy, come to the reality of life. So through life, man say he who feels it knows it, For the hotter the battle, the sweeter the victory.
Right.
So I is here in South Africa, as we continue reasoning from that time even to this time, to say in Africa, the experience is real. The experience is real in terms of demographic, as the Honorable Priest Javus Moses stated earlier, that there's demographics where, in a radius of about 100 kilometers, you'll have different ethnic groups, such as the African race, and you have the white race in an upper suburb area, good area, and you'll have the colored race in a, you know, semi-better area. You have the Indian race in a much, you know, between the colored, the buffer, you know, between the colored and the white. So which really separate us and put us as Black people at the bottom of the ladder, at the bottom of the chain in terms of experience, you know. We feel the pain in terms of economic, you know. Economy, you know, the Black man feels it the most through value-added tax, which is 15% of every purchase. You know, whereas the Black man is at the lowest part of the chain, you know. But at the production chain, the Black man is required at the high value. He's required to produce more. But when it comes to the finances, he's not rewarded accordingly, and he's the majority. And remember, in 1994, when apartheid was dissolved and Nelson Mandela became the first president of the democratic South Africa, there was this notion that people have to live in harmony, but they did not look, they overlooked the fact that Black people's land was not returned to them. And we know through Marcus Garvey say, you know, a people without land is like a body without soul. So Black man up to this day is in the squanderel of 17% of South Africa, where the minority is owning 83%. So that shows you that we can never have tolerance for the white man.
No time.
We can never have tolerance for the Indian man.
No time.
As Idi Amin showed us, you know, through economic sanctions in Uganda, that the Indians occupied Uganda so much so that they made private schools and they made Indian suburbs where Black man was not allowed to come. Just like in South Africa, you have a place like Oranje, where white man is not allowing Black man to come through and have the resources of the land. And that is the place where they have the best resources in terms of citrus and in terms of herbs, the herbs that they use in pharmaceuticals. And you know, South Africa has one of the most indigenous herbs you can find in the world. And in the pharmaceutical industry, South Africa is taking over. And who are the beneficiaries of the pharmaceuticals? They are the landowners who are still the whites, who are still Indian, who are still Mulatu Dundus, the so-called colored. Now you have to remember that we have to debunk W.E. Du Bois from the international level because he called Marcus Garvey a buffoon. We have to go back and call W. Du Bois a monstrosity, a disgrace to the African race, a Mulatu Dundu, because he spoke of integration. We need to be careful of integration because integration is adultery. As in Deuteronomy, you read about adultery, you know? So you learn, say, that Black people, through you know, the love of fornication and lusting, they went into adultery and found themselves in a strange land with the people of strange language. That's why he sent the Black Christ, you know, who built an embassy in Egypt, Jamaica, you know, to let everyone to come in and learn a way of Africa and come home. So we need to know what we're talking about when we speak about adultery and racialism and racism, you know, because these things affect I and I in Africa, especially the latter, which is racism. Racism, we know that is a system of the oppressor. And we know that, you know, through Stephen Bantu Biko in his book, I write what I like. He says the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So we have to let the thing go, compromising the race, the racialism, the middle part of the subject now. Compromising the race. Because when we do that, we pollute ourselves and we compromise our stance in terms of what King Emmanuel, gave the culture to the apostles and to the world of Black people. And what His Imperial Majesty was rallying the whole Black people through, volunteer Ethiopians, because we know why we're singing the volunteer Ethiopians. It's through when King Selassie was in America, and there was a petition for every Black man to join in, because there was a war embargo against Italy and against Ethiopia. So we know that our father had to rally all Black people of the world. So that's why I say, my Lord, in South Africa, we can never mix, because we know, even through the demographic, the system that has been created. My neighbor hates I, just like the Hutu and the Tutsi. But in terms of racialism now, because Idi Amin say out of Africa in 90 days to solve our problems. And if we compromise our position, then we're going to have all useless people in Africa who are going to cause internal struggles and intensify it, rather, because the internal struggles is here already, my lord. So give thanks, for a few words, like I just let other angels go through, and I will come again.
Give thanks, my Honorable Prophet Baka. You have something you wanted to say, my lord?
No, my lord, just listening to the item, my lord, just taking a minute for the same. Yes, honorable. I love to be there, and my brothers, my lord, and my sister at the same time, glorify my lord.
Yes, sir. Honorable Empress Lily May, you wanted to speak now? Honorable Empress Lily May. Empress. Oh. All right, well, the floor is open. The floor is open.
I love the word you're given. It is
honorable. Give thanks, Empress.
Love the word, because it's real, for me, as a continental African living in the Western Hemisphere amongst Bobo Shanti people here, my biggest issue is the integrationalistic mentality towards, repatriation. When I told the priest earlier that I don't want them to come Africa. It's a real thing. I'm coming from my heart, because I know, and to hear my brother come and say that is reality over fantasy. And I think that we got to be very clear about that. The Bobo here, the Africans here and the Bobo, there's too much not of a very clear, trying to save everyone. And in Africa, we're not on that. And redemption begins in Africa.
True. You got us.
Yeah.
All friendly wise to come out of Africa, especially South Africa.
Yeah, man. Run them out there. Yeah, man.
Idi Amin show us a perfect example, Absolutely. And Idi Amin say, I'm one of the most poorest leaders in Africa. You can go all around the world and you will see my bank account. You won't find money in my name. So it just shows you that Africa has been, distorted through the sellout mentality, So we need to be really bona fide patriot You know, because remember, even when our father left Ethiopia, some of his patriarchs, you know, became sellout because they thought our father abandoned Ethiopia, whereas our father did not abandon Ethiopia. He went out to seek for regiment and more
strength,
you know, prophecy to fulfill, you know,
True.
to fulfill the prophecy, really, to show them say, that there's the fire, you know, I go burn out Europe, you know, fire go burn out Europe. So I go show you that I go rally the whole world and use the same Britain forces to, you know, to run out the fascist. So I give thanks, my Lord, and I is not spreading any hate, but I know what we feel here, and I know what we feel. And these people already built their monuments. And when one speak about equality and justice, we say when, and I say now and now.
Honorable
Not a minute
God.
later, not a second later, you know, not a day later. Now and now. And it is through our thinking that I have to show a white man that there's no space for him now.
True.
We have to unite, you know, and come together and speak Black supremacy. Because you can't say if you are white, you are right. If you are Black, stay back.
True.
If you are brown, you can stick around. No, we can't do that. W. Du Bois mentality. You know, we cannot do that. We have to be careful of that, you know, my Lord and Empress. Prince
Honorable.
and
Blessed love.
Yes, God.
Yes, honorable. Why is the honorable priest reasoning there, right? Something hit my mind, my Lord. Honorable Empresses, honorable Empress, my Lord. Okay. Freedom Redemption International repatriation. When I left the West, will I have to go to war to get our land out of the hands of the Arabs, Indians, the Syrians, the Chinamen? Question, my Lord.
Well, now I want to refer forward to the reasoning before where we was talking about right and wrong as it pertains to Black and white and the culture and from the priests, right?
True.
Is that it's not every European that's wicked and it's not every Black person that's good, naturally. You know, as the priest said in Jamaica, the politicians are Black, the police are Black. You know, everybody that's in the positions of power are Black, and they have the power to make things good for Black people, but they choose to continue the white supremacy system of oppression now.
True.
So now when the priest was referring to Black and like all different nations now coming to Africa for, you know, he said it was a 7-year Sabbath, and then 7 times 7. And then after that, 7 times 7, the 50th year would be the Jubilee, wherein they would go home to their own land, and then all the nations would have a righteous, or, you know, be under righteousness under the Black Christ salvation, right? So now the type of white people that the eye is describing as oppressors and segregationists, that, well, not so much even segregation, but the oppressive mentality of those Europeans is not the same Europeans that now would be the ones coming to Bobo Shanti. So, I mean, I hear both sides of the reasoning, and I'm really trying to keep an unbiased opinion and just really get to the truth of the matter so that we can be clear, you know, because the point of reasoning is to come to a right. Is not to have, after we have this discussion, we should go with a bit more of the same understanding and not leave where we all feel differently about the subject, because that wouldn't be serving any purpose, really. We'd just be talking. So, you know, at the end of it all, I would like more clearance as far as when we talking about equal rights and justice now, every set of people, every nation has people who have been injustice by their own people. Because the Indian people in India, they have class, they have the caste system, they have where the outcasts, the Dalits or Dravidians are the blackest ones, generally. And then as it goes up in shade, you know, lighter and lighter, those are the more privileged ones. So you have that type of colorism in India. And, you know, you have poor people and rich people in China. I think most of them have pretty much the same complexion. So it's not based on color there, but it's more so based on class. And then, you know, in Australia, you have Black people, people who, the Aborigines, they call themselves Black. And, you know, they did identify with, say, like the Black Panthers and even the UNIA and all of these things. So you have Black and white there. You have, of course, you have in South America, you have Black and all, you have in like Brazil, you have a whole different class, like color system where there's like a whole bunch of different types of mixes because you have the Indian people, like the people that's from there, you have the Portuguese, you have African people, but you have a whole bunch of different mixes and a whole bunch of different shades and different names for each different shade and, you know, all of that. So, but then you have oppressed people and you have privileged people in Brazil. So now it's like, you really gotta like be really clear now, because you have oppression, and say Rastafari is against all types of oppression. You know what I mean? It's not just about Black and white oppression. It's about any, like how we referred earlier to the speech His Majesty made until the philosophy, et cetera, where he really addressed racism, but also classism and anything that makes one a second class and one a first class. So now when it comes to Black and white, you really could say you have first class, so-called first class citizens, which would be the white people in any society, because those are the ones who defend wrong and injustice. That's what makes them privileged and some underprivileged. And also you have the poor class of people, which is the Black people. And just that's across the board in any society. But now when it comes to, say, your own vine and fig tree, it's not everybody that can say just because they come, we all have a common ancestor. In, you know, say like Lucy or Dinkanish, the oldest African that has ever been found, we would say is our common ancestor. All people came from that. But that doesn't mean that everybody could claim Ethiopia, Africa as their home.
True.
So when we say Ethiopia, Africa, Black, the Ethiopia is a continent, Africa is a continent. There's no land called Black land. Well, we could say that the Kemetic people said, you know, Tom Mary as the land of the Black and all of these things. But when we say Black now, because we don't say Ethiopia, Black, Africa, Tom Mary, we say Ethiopia, Africa, Black. And when King Emmanuel used the term Black now, as the priest defined earlier, he's not referring to necessarily skin color, but more so to your heart and whether you deal with righteousness and the truth that the Black man and the Black woman is the first of all nations, and the first God and first goddess of the world, right? So it's just different levels. So at the end of the day, we can all agree that African people, we can identify an African by looking at them by their facial features or by their hair or something about them. You would know that you could attach them to a continent, a landmass, right? And everybody who's European pretty much has a similar, like they have straight hair, more so. Some of them have a little bit of curly hair, but their noses are different. They have blue eyes and green eyes and all of these different types of eyes. And the same way across the board, you can identify people and attach them to a landmass. That's where we come into equal rights and justice and every man to his own vine and fig tree, etc. So, I mean, I would just open up the floor for comments and questions. That was just my synopsis of the reasoning so that we could have a conclusion, you know what I mean? Because as the priest Jah-Given and priest Zera and priest Vusu Musi all said, they really aren't into the race, the mixing of the different, say like the African and the colored and all of these things, where now we're going back to adultery and things like that. So it's clear that there is some distinction, even though we all are one in Christ, there is distinction of different types of sets of people based on where they come from and their genetic makeup. Do we agree on that? Does anyone have anything like that they would like to add or take away from what I said for the sake of getting conclusion? So once we can go away from this with an agreement.
I'd like to agree, my Lord Prophet, because remember in the philosophies and opinions of Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, he writes about the Cape Coloured of South Africa, where he explains that the Cape Coloured of South Africa has been compromised as a people, of a mixed race, because they are now used as a buffer zone between the black and the white, in terms of what I've just explained earlier, to say, if you are white, you are right. If you are black, you have to stay back. If you are brown, you can stick around. So that is the buffer zone that we are speaking about, that the Honorable Prophet was referring to in terms of, racial demographics, and the racial demographics really shows you how the system has been designed to put us in our jeopardy as Black people, because it is through the system that we can function as an organized people or society, if we may, or people, or organization or association. So it is through that system that they created the colored race now as an enemy of the Black people, whereas when the colored comes home now, he comes home to the Black people, and to the Black mother's bosom, and she has to feed the colored now, you see. So it is a predicament for the Black people, in this time, how to deal with the colored people, my Lord, who is going between, back and forth between the white and the Black. It is really a difficult position that we find ourselves, especially here in the South, because they still exist in their system. The white man is still here. The white man is still ruling here. Yeah.
I pray the
Majesty.
Honorable. Give thanks again, Honorable Prophet, my Lord and Empress. Just talking the current situation of the demographics now in South Africa, within the same context. Right now, the government is talking about legalizing the plant, right? Which a particular race or a community of people have been oppressed using clause of Drugs and Trafficking Act, which are draconian, which are race-based, which are aimed at race extermination. Now, the state is saying now they are considering legalizing now. Who is benefiting first is the very same white race who have never suffered over a plant. Today, they are opening academies, they are opening schools of teaching about the plant. Where is the community that have been oppressed by race, using race systems to oppress this community and this race over this plant? So my point is to say, if we say now we have to compromise now, allowing white people now in Africa, when the opportunity of kicking them out arrives, we will be tolerant to them and give them their 49 years to allow the prophecy to fulfill. I don't know, priest and empress, my Lord, coming to that prophecy, which of that prophecy is fulfilling? Because in my understanding, that will be a reverse destruction of Black people, because white people are willing to stick around in Africa as long as they wish.
Do you know how dangerous that is, Honorable? To have the children right now.
Beloved.
Jazeera. I look out here in America, I see the children of the conquistador and the children of our slave masters. When they come into Bobo Shanti, they come and learn culture. And because they belong to the dominant class of society economically, they come and go and take our culture and make more money off King Emmanuel's thing more than black people. And then the black people, Black Bobo sitting there, oh, white people are so benevolent. These white people coming into Bobo Shanti belong to the dominant class of society at this point in time. And they are not doing nothing to do with the justice of black people. So I'm not sitting here and going to say we want another 48 years in Africa because I see what they're doing here when they come into Bobo Shanti. There is none that is working towards the redemption of black people like how they're supposed to. Everybody comes and monopolizes of black people in the true nature of their fathers. And it's black Bobo that want to be so religious.
Blessed.
My Lord.
Mm-hmm. Oh, give thanks. What I am saying, is that remember at the time of redemption. All right, first the statement is Africa awaits its creators. Now, what should be happening at this time is our brothers, our sisters in Africa, in all states, should be rallying to agitate for us down here in the West. Right? Because at the time of our redemption, the evil white world, they're not going to be there when only the tag of them I and I will see when these warriors, the Western Army here coming home. Only good people will remain. Only
there's
good
none.
people will
the Bible
remain.
says there's none that they're good, God. That's what the Bible says. There's none that good. You can't teach me nothing good about the white man. Nothing. Nothing.
No one of them is good.
None. King Emmanuel said that. I cannot teach you nothing good about the white man. So you can't come teach me nothing good about a white man in a robe and turban.
The white man,
they are just Satan's.
Is skin deep.
Satan period.
I get to feel that, my lord, because it's one God for us all, very much still, and it's just one God for us all, and it's chain one, and it's still one God for us all, and you take it, all of I and I come from Judah, all of I and I, He made us, There is nothing we wasn't made by Him, Rasta. And Rastafari is self-awareness and self-control and self-upliftment. What goes around comes around. The man said, thou shalt not kill. That is one of the strongest part of the commandments. So we have to know what we're doing and how we're thinking as a people and as a nation, because Psalms 140 and 5 says, this challenge a generation unto a generation will still come and create this mighty act, and it's wonderful work. So it even going for behind I. But it could be behind children will come for set the participation. This work have to fulfill, because nothing have to fulfill before this work even reaches certain standard and certain level with King Emmanuel said. Because enough people have to run in and go into the foundation. The foundation have to full of people over in Jamaica, because people have to come and get in knowledge of the Black Christ and how to go and set themselves. Because if my brothers and my sisters don't really get the teaching of the Black Christ salvation, how them could relate to a Rasta? Which means I and I still have to go home still. I give thanks same for the music, it's lovely and I love it same way. I give thanks, my Lord and Empress.
My Lord. Yes, sir.
Can I give thanks to the word, but coming forward to the fundamental human rights and all of these things. It's certain I just can't really see certain things, and the Father also say a remnant of every nation. So I don't know, if there's no good in that race at all, then why they're on the earth, why they're on the earth?
Sure.
I would like to share an excerpt here from, I will read from the Black Supremacy Handbook, right? Listening to this reasoning here, you find that there's a lot of questions about creation, right? The origin of mankind, you know, and how people came to be on earth. You understand? Because there's a lot of references to the Bible, but let's use science for a little bit and how do we properly understand creation, you know, as it happened. You know,
right.
how do you have white folks? How do you have Indians? How do you have Asians? Where they come from? You know what I mean?
Yes, I go ahead and read it.
Okay, but okay, so I'm gonna read the excerpt from the Black Supremacy, and it's chapter 6, page 74. It says, "The spirit of the Black God is the truth and right, which dwells in the flesh of all people. The true spirit of God in flesh is the Black Christ, which speaks today to all flesh, especially to his loved ones, the royal Ethiopian saints, the Black house of Israelites, which are being held down by colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism." And that's a statement right there. And I feel like, okay, you know, we could spend time to understand the first statement. The spirit of the Black God is the truth and right, which dwells in the flesh of all people. So, honorables, I would ask the item, what does that mean?
So I would take that to mean that, contrary to what you said, that there's no good white people, that there is good white people, because if it's in all flesh, then I would include white flesh.
Yes,
Truth
I
and
agree.
right. Being truthful and being right doesn't make you good. You see, that's a whole nother conversation here, brothers and sisters. You know, it didn't say the spirit of the Black God is the good and the right. It says the truth and the right.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. My beloved, blessed.
Right, but the opposite, anything that's not good would be what?
Bad.
Right.
It doesn't.
The color of the
something
truth is black. The color of the lie is white.
natural.
The origin of the sin is white.
Yes.
If we say,
And
That's the
the
black
origin of
teaching.
life, the origin of life is carbon.
The origin of the
black.
light is black.
Because it's
Black
carbon.
is the light, you know.
Let me ask a question. White ain't considered to be holy. Don't we wear white on the Sabbath?
That's all. That's all.
But we still have a black. But we still have a black over white for resurrection.
We still have.
He resurrected black over white. He didn't resurrect in all white, and he brought the culture and said black over white for resurrection. Up from their grave we arose. Up from black of your European oppression we arise. Black over
The
white.
way how we using things just to suit this and that ain't making sense. The way how we using certain things to make it seem like it should be this way and that way is not right. It's not the right thing to do. It's not right.
All right.
I sit in here. Wait. I sit in here and I trying to even understand what it means to be adulterous. I trying to understand what is that. What is the concept of that?
That's what we were getting. That's what this whole thing is about. So we said that adultery is, first of all, going and having a different God than the God that created us, right? Second of all, when it comes to marriage and family, to go outside of your race, your nation, etc., which now that was where the brethren from South Africa was saying that in their country, you have black, white, and colored, and then you have Indian and Chinese and whatever other nations. But the black now, the African, the Zulu, the Dosa, and the other people that are native to the place they would feel that it would be adulterous for them to be with a colored person, which is someone who is mixed with black and white. So then now the colored people would be with other colored people, and white people would be with white people, and Chinese people with Chinese people. Now, when it comes to repatriation now and equal rights and justice and every man to their own vine fig tree, that's what we're really getting to. And that's where I see that we have the most of a problem of coming to an agreement, because we agree on those first parts as far as a different God and marrying and having children with. But now when it comes to where you're supposed to move to and who's supposed to get this equal rights and justice and freedom, redemption, repatriation, it's like when it comes to that prophecy now about everybody moving to Africa for 49 years, that's where there seems to be a bit of a disagreement. Because now we're saying all right, what Empress Sisi was saying is that there's no white people that are good. But then she just read something that said that the spirit of the Black Christ is truth and right, and it dwells in all flesh of all people.
Yeah, so it dwells in the flesh of all people.
Hold on. Pardon me, I'm not done. Now, when we say that it's in all flesh, right, that means all nations of people. And if it's the spirit of truth and right, the opposite of truth is lie. The opposite of right is wrong. So anything that's a lie and anything that's wrong would not be that of the Black Christ, but that spirit of truth and right is in all flesh, all people.
It is the spirit of the Black God.
Is in
and
all
what is
people.
and what is all people come from Africa. So going
Right,
back
but
to the
not
Black
everybody
God.
is in
So
Africa.
remember, life is spiritual and temporal, right? So
So the
spiritually,
spirit
when we
have
say
to be in all flesh, not just the black flesh, all flesh.
no, it's in all flesh. And when I say it's in all flesh,
but
it
not
is in
just
all
the
flesh.
black flesh alone.
But being truthful, the spirit of truth, right, is to accept truth. What is truth? That at some point in time in history, right, this group changed, moved out of Africa. When you deal with the story of creation, whether you look at it from scientifically speaking, you know, and you study science, everyone started in Africa and they migrate out of Africa. Okay, and through the migratory process, they change to adapt to the climates that they're in. The European will change to get longer straight hair so he can cover his neck, because the neck carries all the vital organs to keep you with life. You understand what I'm saying? Then they come to the Asians. Now the Asians, the eyes, why are the eyes slanted? Do you understand? So the spirit of the Black God would be acknowledging that everybody comes from Africa. And when we say this, the spirit of it now is truth and right. Honest
And
people.
the reason why having this topic is slavery. Without slavery, there would not be this topic.
Exactly. And that's the truth.
And the original slavery has got color in it.
Yes, and that's the truth.
Race attached in it.
And that's the truth. That's
sentiments of race attached in it.
So we want white folks that accept that as truth and are able to say, as Bobo Shanti, this is the truth. We want the children of conquistadors that are able to say, this is the truth. Because that is the spirit of the Black God. It's
And to
right,
come to
not
Elder
good.
Priest
Not
Headley,
good that dwells in flesh, you know, it's the truth and right that dwells in flesh. Not the good. The Bible says there were none that are good.
Family.
I pray. If you're dealing with a spiritual aspect, of it, right? What is spiritual adultery? What is that?
Spiritual adultery would be the denial of truth. The denial of truth is spiritual adultery. When you fail, see, spirituality, what is spirituality? Spirituality is clear thinking. Because people use this term spirituality. What is this spirituality? Define it. You see it? Because people feel to attach spirituality as some kind of unusual feeling. And spirituality is the hallmark of spirituality is clear thinking.
Which is natural.
Naturally, which is what we are for as Africans. That's why King Emmanuel came to teach us to be Africans from creation. We dealt with
which
clear
is the
thinking.
original foundation of thinking. Clear
yes.
thinking.
Spiritual adultery is the forsaking of Jehovah God's love and the embracing of the world's value and desire. He sent his son into the world to condemn the world, not to condemn the world, but to save the world from him.
What did the world do?
This topic here, when the world is the enemy. And
who is the enemy? Who is the enemy? We are supposed to put like
black people never enslaved.
The enemy is Satan.
There is no history of black people enslaving other races, you know. There is
Yes.
no history of black
History.
people enslaving
Let me
other
teach
races.
you something. Let me teach you something. Wait.
One at a time.
Let me get
One at a time, Jadaniel.
let me get my point. Let me get my
One
point
at a time.
across.
Empress, I pray the
Look
eye.
at this.
Psalms 24, which is the opening Psalms of the Sabbath, right? The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, the wall and they that dwell therein. So the wall still can't even be evil within itself. If you think, God is what you think. I still say, come greater in spirit, come something you never come before. You know? So it's when you really check this power, Rastafari is all dwelling with an individual, yourself, you know? You really yourself.
Please tell me, Empress Maisie, you had something you wanted to say?
No, I was, yeah, much of comment, but I was just telling one person at a time so we can understand what is going on. Please give that. Jamacho, you want to say
listen.
Bless the love, my Lord, and
I try
Empress.
to
Blessed love, my Lord. You're muted.
In
Go
mute?
through. Yeah, go through.
So Daniel,
Yeah, we can hear you.
you know, say, like, on Sabbath, when you reach the closing hymn, you have to have, like, a man that say, this is, check the Father for your closing hymn, and always get that closing hymn here. The church is one foundation. Is Jesus Christ her Lord. She's the new creation by water and by works word. From Zion he came and sought her to be his only bride, and with his own blood he brought her, and for her life she lived. He left from every nation, yet one over all the earth, a charter of salvation, one Lord, one faith, one birth, one holy name she presses, partake one only food, and to only one name she presses, to every grace endure. Oh, with a scornful wonder.
What happened? Priest. Priest Matthew. You're unmute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's elect over, yeah?
Yes, go through.
Elect from every nation. It is one overall, the black nation, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that
So this is the fear they are carrying right now, beloved, is that if they should give us forward, you know, the ruling power, we're going to do to them the same thing they did to us.
His Majesty says we shouldn't, and we're not. He said we must transcend, you know, the need to retaliate. And in the true nature, see, when we transcend that because we've attained power, and we have power, we can secure our borders.
True.
You see, but unless
hold on.
Yes, beloved.
The prophecy now where you said about the 7 year Sabbath and then the 7 times 7, that's coming from King Emmanuel or from the Bible?
Emmanuel, Selassie, Jah.
Priest Headley, you're muted.
That's the love, Pady.
One moment, I was asking a question. After we get the answer, then we'll call on you. Priest Headley, unmute, please. Priest Headley, unmute.
Yes, beloved.
Yeah, the prophecy that you shared about the 7 year Sabbath and the 7 times 7, and then in the Jubilee, everybody leaving Africa. Now, is that coming from King Emmanuel, his mouth, or from the Bible?
It's also in the prophecy, and it's from Dada, my Lord.
All right, give thanks, my Lord. So if he said that now, it's not something to really debate.
It's redemption, you know, beloved. He comes to redeem his people from the hands of their enemy, cleanse them from their sins, and take them forward home. So it's only good people going home, you know. He even tell the government down here, say, fly the prison door and give them all of them, you know. See it? Because listen, beloved, when we were coming, 140 million of us died in the Middle Passage. Huh? And remember, it's 7, 9, 13, up to 21 miles of boat. all who want to go home. But remember, his commandment going up the Nile same way. You know? So the purging will go on out there now. Because so you know why I'm not purging well yet? It's because them go and say, because him couldn't save them, him kill them off. So I say? So when I want own heart condemn them, my lord, they are condemned, you know, even though I'm faithful to save them. So on the way up, my lord, I'm going to purge Israel. So no wrong, no sin, now go home forward, my brethren. And when them sinner up the here, high and I come with the naya being dead to the wicked and run, gone, beloved.
My lord.
Give thanks for that. Call upon Jah Winston or the Empress.
So she say, my lord, this is a Zion child, eh? This is a Zion child. Never forget that. The road of King Emmanuel child is not a wrong road. If it was a wrong road, that I would have never tried it. It's him create everything. This is a Zion child. So that I and I could always be a north, you know, and I will always be here, my lord. So I have to make it right. Yes. We looking for
beloved.
My lord.
No sin and no more evil ways that come home, my brethren. Clean and pure heart, equality for all.
True God, true my lord. But remember, say repatriation is for even the man in the garbage. We're eating out of the garbage.
Everyone, my brethren, those on the sidewalk, the madhouse, the prison, everyone, my brethren.
Natural priest, you know. So it's a power. It's a power come to a cleanliness and a faithfulness. Bring righteousness, my lord. Because it's how one go look on themselves and say, what? If I wish that for I brother, it could reach I brother. But if I show love to I brother, it could reach I brother. But what if I send evil now? The evil go reach him and I go look on the evil and say, but is I speak such word and it reach I brother? I feel sad within myself. Even I brother get in hand cut. Even I get in hand cut. I will feel it naturally once I see it. Because I as I brother's keeper. You know, we give thanks again for the word, my lord.
Just give thanks.
Honorable Priest Edley, my lord.
Beloved.
You know, I give thanks for what you and Jah Winston are saying, you know. But when I look at the practical work, the human rights justice work of King Emmanuel, practically, I'm talking about writing the governments and so forth. I didn't see him trying to bring forth equality and justice for everybody. I saw him specifically agitating and writing on the behalf of enslaved and the descendant of the enslaved African. You know?
I don't think Priest Edley's speech really negates that, really, because it's not about who he's agitating for, because them saying
no, because
the same other nations should be agitating for our rights too, because they, you know, they have had they're the beneficiaries of, you know, the slavery and the system that ensued after. So it's not to say that King Emmanuel, just because one might say that they have good in them, that they are the ones that we should be agitating for rights for, but they should be agitating as well. But I think every different nation has a different role and a different responsibility and a different level of accountability for their part in the slave trade. So the African now, our role in the slave trade, we were the captives, we were the chattel. But now the Indian, their role in the slave trade is a little bit different. The Jew, the same way, the so-called Jew, the Jewish, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Belgian, all of them, their roles are different. But so now a European who comes to the Black Christ, they shouldn't come to do the same thing that we come to do, or to look for the same benefits or the same justice that we should. They should come looking to be the ones to help teach their people that they need to be the ones.
So with all that, how y'all factor in folks coming to Africa though? That's the part, because when I say that, when he wrote on paper specifically for so when I speak of international repatriation to Africa, I am not seeing other nations of people on that. And on the paperwork.
I'll let the priest speak on that one. I can't.
And that's what I'm talking about here when I look at his paperwork and what he writes down on paper to the heads of government. He is talking about the justice of the African He ain't trying to say, oh, I'm looking for the justice for white folks.
No, no,
or
no,
just,
no.
Or justice.
Strictly
I'm
for
not.
black.
He's not saying. He's not
Strictly
saying I
Justice
want
of the slave
for
children, you know.
strictly.
Yeah.
Justice
So
of the slave
therefore,
children.
therefore, I am
Terminology
not
has been
one at a
seeing
given by
time.
King
seeking
Emmanuel,
no
you know,
nation
to
aside
identify
for
even
black
his
people.
mission.
Yes.
One at
That he was
a
really
time.
Whole. So,
Honorable Royal
If
Congregation.
you notice, he comes for his people.
Not right.
That's where it's taken away illegally.
Yes.
And say they must be returned legally.
Not
as
right.
royal, black, dignified supremacy, sons, daughters, gods, goddess, like when they were coming for us. Come, let us go and take some of those gods.
Yes.
Pretty eye.
Honorable, go through. Blessed. Well, you muted yourself.
Pretty eye.
Honorable.
Yes, Honorable Empress Donka. Right, your Winston Empress.
Give thanks.
Holy Manuel I. Selassie.
Yeah.
Rastafari.
Rastafari.
We'll give thanks again for, you know, my Lord Empress, Prince and Princess. Give thanks again, you know, Mama Lily. You know, give thanks for, you know, the word sound, you know. Give thanks for Mama Cece. You know, I just want to address the Empress system. You know, give thanks for, you know, the Empress Lily for bringing them up front. You know, in the beginning was the word, and the word took onto itself flesh. You know, everyone know, you know, what that word is. You know, just say, you know, everyone to their own vine and fig tree. And he say Leviticus, you know, Deuteronomy, you know, 25, you know, speaks about the golden jubilee, which speaks about the priest that's supposed to claim the land, the original land that belongs to the priestdom, because they are the ones that's supposed to claim the land in Africa, the original. So moving forward in terms of, you know, human rights and, you know, these purity and so on and so forth. You know, there's ones that's physically born in countries where, especially in the lands, you know, up north, you know, in the west, you know, but overall America and, you know, Canada and then places there, where someone like I now, you know, who's considered visually to be a visual minority, that's a mixed blood. Because why? Because the generations before I, speaking Psalms 140 and 5, generation onto another generation, there's a mix, you know, going through. It didn't start, you know, originally with the white man. My original generation is a black woman and a black man, right? Originally from Ethiopia, Africa. The whole earth was Ethiopia at one point. It was all one land. But when, you know, our brothers and sisters start to be unruly, you know, again, words sound and power, because we have them powers now, creation power. You know, the earth, you know, lightning, thunder, earthquake, blizzard, everything come and separate the land naturally to creation power. So reasoning again now to redemption and international repatriation now. Like when I go home now, with I reason like physically, because we can't have the spiritual without the physical. When I go there and they look at I now, right? They look at I as a black woman. They don't look at I as anything else. So when I go now and I come to the Caribbean, right, and they hear my accent, they don't consider I to be just a black woman. They consider I to be a Canadian black woman. They don't see I as one of them in the Caribbean. They consider I to be from the Americas and the Canadians, right? So when I go Africa now, it's the same thing. They will say, you know, again, ones and ones, not everyone, will say, oh, you're not from here. Even though I have the same color scheme, maybe a little bit of a lighter shade, right? They will say, oh, you're not from here. You're not from my country. Again, this is Africa I'm using about. They will say, oh, you're from the West. You're from, Canada. Because usually anyone can distinguish my accent. So now when I come now and I go into my own country where I was born physically, and you look at they say, I'm not from their country. That's not my country. So where do I stand? Through creation power and the physical, because you cannot have one without the other. So I reason again, Psalms 140 and 5, one generation onto the next. Everything, for I and I, the world could never be evil because they'll never make it evil, right? In the beginning was the word, and the word took on to itself flesh. They'll never make the world evil. It's the people then. After years, as Psalms 140 and 5 say, generation unto generation, right, came out of themselves. One generation after the next. Because why? Because why? Again, now, my question is, someone like I now, right, who's fighting, through the spiritual, right, and the physical, for freedom, redemption, and international repatriation. I fighting for our one, but to its own violent victory. Where does that leave I? Because I consider my home to be Africa, but there's ones and ones don't feel so, that Africa is my home because why? Because of where I was born and how I sound. And when I reason on a phone to maybe a Caucasian man or a Spanish man or, a Chinese man, they don't hear no black. They hear a Caucasian person because why? They don't detect no accent. They don't detect anything, right? Because why? I don't have a Caribbean accent. I don't have, African accent, and even an American accent. But guess what? All of the I and I can feel say I have an accent. Just the same way how now through the physical, I'm using it again now. When I hear the I then, I hear all of the I accents now. So my question is now, how are you going to resolve this whole issue here? Because when you really check it now, the whole world is in trouble with adultery. Give thanks again, Honorable my Lord, Empress Prince, and Prince.
Oh, blessed love, Omega. First, I would say, one thing the Father gives everyone is choice. He has never taken away choice from us. Only men try to do that, as I see they are even trying to do at this time. But he gives us choice. It's your choice, my sister, who you choose, whether the black God, or the white Jesus, Africa or the Western world, Clean hands, pure heart, equality for all. So all the good people will be saved, from your choices to go home.
Honorable Priest Zara.
Yes, give thanks, my Lord. The elder did touch it. I was just going to say then, with the choice, the system. There's two systems. You choose, really. You go with the white system or the black system,
Yes.
Give thanks, ancient elder priest Edley, for that word. Yeah, my Lord.
Royal Majesty, bless you.
Honorable.
Man talk about the mixed multitude too, Man talk about the mixed
Choice to be
multitude.
black, choice to be white.
Yes, my Lord, because remember, all did come out of the black, and out of the darkness come the light.
So my Lord.
Whether any way you want to take it,
Yeah, the man say first is for the Jews, then the Gentiles, What can the elder clarify that for me then?
Beloved?
That context. The black Christ said, I'm for the Jews, first for the Jews, then the Gentiles.
The true Jew.
Yeah, I'm saying the word say, Christ say, I'm first for the Jews, then the Gentiles.
Yes.
I am here, I came for the Jews.
Yeah.
Like the Empress saying now on the black supremacy. First the black nation, then the whole world of people.
Yes, because he came unto his own, and his
My
own
Lord.
receive him not. But to all who receive him, why him give them power to become called who? Sons, daughters of him.
That means now ancient to all who receive his truth.
Yes. Yes.
Does not mean, it doesn't matter the skin color, right?
No, my Lord.
So
as
then that
long as
means
you
now
accept.
when the white man received that truth, that means then he go back to himself, which means to himself of self, meaning now to that white self or to that original black self. I want to get clarity from the elder.
Because, all right, you remember the Omega say is black people did venture out and become white?
Yes. Yes, my Lord.
So he would come forward in himself of self to acknowledge the origin of him.
In
to
spirit,
acceptance of being the cause of
in spirit.
error.
The spirit
in truth,
of
you know,
the black
words,
God is the
action, in
spirit
spirit, in
and
truth.
truth.
Meaning it will stop, the spirit will stop erring. Because I mean the spirit
Yes, my Lord.
cannot manifest without flesh. I mean always the balance, because the error
Yes,
of the
my
spirit
Lord.
we see it in flesh, right?
The flesh will
If the spirit
manifest
is in
right.
error, we look the flesh, right?
Flesh will manifest right. If
The
if a
error
white
of
man is dealing with the spirit of the black God, which is the truth and right, in his actions, it's through the actions that you know them by their works. So it's the
Action
action that
speak louder
tells
than
you.
words.
It tells you what
Can I-
spirit is operating.
Can I
in
come
flesh.
to my point then? Then that means we will not have to agitate for our right. That means white men will just know it, that, hey, I'm not in my position right now. I have to go back.
This is what they must do.
Then that means we will not be writing any letters to any government. Then that means then.
No, that doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean you don't agitate. That it means
still
you
have to
appeal.
agitate.
You appeal, because if it's the spirit of the black God is the truth and right, you appeal to flesh. You see, so you appeal to that flesh, and if that flesh is dealing with truth and right within themselves, they will assist our mission. You see it, and because they acknowledge that their people owe African people a justice.
Yeah,
that's why we say
Can we
all
go to reality now?
All friendly whites to come out of Africa now, especially South Africa. You know.
Yeah.
You see, because it comes to what the elder is saying right now, and even what Honorable Priest Zera is saying in concurrence to the clearance of the Royal Apostle Samuel, you know, to say, when all white people have admitted and have come to the truth and right, that the black world is elect of every nation, is God over, you know, as the hymn say, elect of every nation, yet one God over all.
All, yes.
It means if they all become submissive to this one black
Right.
God.
Right.
You know,
Right, my
even
Lord.
Exodus, it shows us, you know, the culture of the last commandment, that thou shalt not go up by the steps unto my altar.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
to show that thy nakedness should not be
discovered.
Discovered thereof.
Yes.
So, you know, it just shows us that it first is the black man consideration, and the black man naturally with his pure divine love, because you know, love has no fear, love has no boundaries, love has no color, love you know, accept everyone who is submissive to love. So in that culture, I say King Emmanuel culture is so loving that it gives us positions in his association, in his Congress, you know, and it shows us that, you know, the Black people, out of the Black people come all races of people, and one must just acknowledge the Black people's position so that
natural.
there can be divinity.
Yes, my Lord.
My
This
Lord.
is why in this time we have to love with security, my Lord, because His love brings us out here.
Collective security for surety.
Give thanks, ancient, you know, because His love His love.
Yes, my
His love
Lord.
bring you there.
Pretty eye, Honorable my Lord, Empress, Prince and Princess. Again, now I reason on the physical and the spiritual, more on the spiritual now. So when a Caucasian man now, or a yellow man, you know, and so on and so forth, who is not of the dark skin color or the brown color or even the light brown color now, come to that redemption now and know the Black Christ salvation and know, you know, and speak through the spiritual, right? There's a terminology that's out here that I learned out here about a roast breadfruit, in terms of if you have a Black man that don't know himself and he sounds like a Caucasian man that don't know himself. So what happens to the Caucasian man now that know himself to the spiritual, meaning now he sounds like a Black man to the spiritual, reason to the spiritual, but his actual physical aspect now, when you look at him, he's Caucasian, right? It poses a problem because again now, when a Black man with the actual skin tone to the physical now looks at him and sees him as a Caucasian man, and that same Black man might not know himself because he prays in Jesus, you know? So does that make him more than the other man now, who's Caucasian now, through the spiritual or through the physical? Because again, he prays in Jesus. He don't know King Emmanuel yet. But the white man now, the Caucasian man now, who know King Emmanuel now and stand for King Emmanuel redemption, you know, Black Christ salvation now. You know it, but yet now because of his physical aspects, you know, his form and his color now, right? He cannot sit on the throne because of his physical aspects, but he knows King Emmanuel, he knows the Black Christ salvation. But the Black man who has the black skin tone and the dark skin tone now, that don't know himself now, he can sit on the throne, but he prays in Jesus then. That's what the idea is.
No.
No.
Right. So again now, right, the Caucasian man now, who's a physical, cannot sit on the throne of Jesus. And because his physical aspect, right, shows that he's a Caucasian man. He has to go forward to his own violent physical. But to the spiritual now, his spiritual, his soul, right, will go forward to Africa where it should be, because why? Because that's his redemption spiritually. 14 blocks. Right? So I mean the land and the earth is always going to be there, beginning without end. Again, I say the people, right? So I mean again, there's a lot to be rectified, right? Through the spiritual and the physical aspects, right? I mean again, it's still man that created the laws through the actual Bible, because the laws came from the actual Bible, through the book of Sirach, which is actually one of the books that was taken out of the Bible originally, which still came from scrolls, and the scrolls came originally from Ethiopia. And again, in Ethiopia, before there was actually pages, you know, actual pages, and so forth, we held that naturally to creation power. So again, there is that lead all of the I, someone like myself. Give thanks again, Royal Congregation.
It's honorable CC.
Yes, blessed love. Listening to the reasoning, I'm hearing a separation of the flesh from the spirit, but the works of the spirit is manifest through the flesh. So there's a oneness that must exist in the personality. So when I look at a white man who says he's a Bobo, right, and loves King Emmanuel, right, I should never see him amongst white black people. I should see him amongst the white world battling for the right of black people, because the truth in him now, the spirit of truth in him will show him. Yeah, he'll show him right judgment. My skin color people, them did this to that people. So if I hail Emmanuel and I say, yeah, and so then he goes to go battle his fathers, his uncles. You see it, and unless a flesh does that, you cannot come tell me that you love Emmanuel. You see it. So what? So therefore, what Bobo Shanti people must do now is deal with level expectation, because we can speak of spirit, but spirit must manifest through flesh. So we must watch the word with the works. You know. Understand? Yeah, we can't separate.
In my opinion,
is spirit.
If I may,
That is spirit truth.
If I may, I would say
agree.
what you just said in CC. Pardon. In CC to that, what you just said, I would say we should hold that same standard for our black brothers and sisters. Same way, because
naturally.
Yeah, just because you black and
I agree with that.
You have to stand for right. And you have to really stand and not just say you stand, but actually actions have to show that you stand for it.
Right.
Right. This is why the Father said
we can't have a double standard. So
Judgment.
But
you remember Marcus Emmanuel last year, you know, they're all from different skin tones. Remember Empress when come again now, and she's a different skin tone to the physical. So last year come again now, right, to the throne of David now, right? Again, with a different skin tone. When ones and ones come to and say, how come Marcus Garvey don't have locks on his head and he's dark skinned, right? How does that, you know, how does he become part of the Trinity? When ones and ones come and tell us, you know, ask like questions about, you know, King Emmanuel now, who's of the dark skin now, right, to the physical now, right? And you put all of them, because again, it's still one, because I know that it's still one, right? But they're still showing you to the physical now, right? All the different skin tones. Because when you really check it now, right? Bobo Shanti now say Empress, man and woman, right, within the Bobo order, right, must be, you know, together with their own skin tone to the physical. This is not even to right? And how and I say a conflict, right? If you have a dark skinned man with a light skinned empress, you know. So again, now, you know, again, it's still one, right? And that same maybe light skinned empress, right? May know empress many. She'll know Makeda, Candace, Belkis, however they want to call her, because enough ones call her different names, but it's still one empress. It's still one queen, right? So again, now, you know, all of that now, you know, I hear one of the empress, the elder empress, say, you know, she don't agree with that, with certain things, you know. And again, I can see where she can say, or she will say that how she don't agree with certain things. But then I also will see where Mama Cici is moving, and, you know, I will see where she's coming from. So again, it doesn't mean that I'm on, you know, one side and then I'm on the other side, right? But I can see the actual big picture, you know, be
yes.
reconciled.
Give thanks. Honorable Priest Zera has his hand raised, and we're gonna seal up shortly after the priests go through, because we could talk all night until morning, but we have to stop at some point still, and we could continue the reasoning in the next session. Honorable Priest Zera, go through, my Lord.
Give thanks, Majesty, love again. Yeah, just to share the few priests, you know, to say upon the topic now, I was just going to ask now the reasoning now, members in the reasoning to the prophecy now and what is expected of the prophecy now. Where are we now? Who can tell us where are we now in the dispensation? Are we in that moment where the slave children is cognizant of the fact that he did not bring himself there, or because I did hear the elder said, you must be careful of the love, you know. I hear a word like some slavery did happen out of our carelessness or something, because I'm just not clear based on the prophecy and on the history. By that I mean based on the history, I mean prophecy, I don't mean the Bible. I mean the Bible, pardon, but by history I mean the events of what has unfolded from the kings being said they were willingly sold their people to the slave master. So I'm trying to balance now that where are we as the race, as the Bobo Shanti royal family, or as the Black nation in balance with the topic. I don't know if I'm clear, Honorable Prophet.
From what I get from what you're asking, it feels like, I would say, the indigenous African, such as the I self, who never was, sent away, and the indigenous African that was sent away are the rightful owners of the continent that's known as Ethiopia and Africa and Al-Kabulan and many other names. Now, when it comes to this prophecy about ones and ones coming, righteous ones from different nations coming to Africa for a time, and all of the wicked ones to leave. And then after the 49 years is up, the 50th year, even those righteous ones go back to their own vine and fig tree. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, correctly, Prophet. Yes,
so
my Lord.
Yes, my Lord. Is that correct? I mean, I'm just giving what I get from it. Priest Headley or anyone. Yeah,
that's correct. Your analysis of my question is correct. Yeah. I'm saying this in terms, Prophet, because like the Empress was saying, we have the Bobos now that are coming from like the Caucasian, and then we've got the Bobos that are coming from the Black, and I'm trying now to balance that all saying with the prophecy and history. Is the history balancing the prophecy? That's the question I'm asking myself.
Okay.
And
history balancing the prophecy. Well,
yeah.
I mean, if I can, give my perspective to answer the question, and anyone who feels like they want to answer it as well, feel free after I go through. But I would say, yes, I don't see any contradiction or any because, all right, say me for instance, I don't have a problem with any person of any race that doesn't do me any harm. Right now, if they're there for a time, and we know that they're supposed to leave after that time is up, and they agree to leave, and then when the time comes, they actually do hold up to their agreement, which I know, Europeans, you have to really watch them when it comes to treaties and agreements and things like that, because they write them just like, writing a check, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna do what they say, So if they were actually to leave, I wouldn't have a problem. I don't have a problem worshiping God beside anybody from another race or another nation or anything like that. But if we're doing good, then I don't have a problem with them, sharing that space and time for a time, because at some point, they must go and bring the salvation to their own country. And I don't really think that would be a problem, because if they're not there doing any harm, if they actually are good people, if the spirit of truth and right is in them and fills them, then there shouldn't be any problem, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion still. But Empress Kishmet had her hand raised, and if she's still here, she can, unmute herself and say whatever she wanted to say. Empress Kishmet?
Yes, I, my Lord and Empress. Yes, I, my Lord and Empress, give thanks. I'm hearing everybody talking about everyone to their own vine. And I know in John 15, verse 5, he said, I am the true vine. You are the branches. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that's thrown away and wither. So when I look at the whole aspect let me touch on this part. When I look at the whole aspect with this whole vaccine, right? They're giving it to all leaders and all leaders giving it to us. So when I tracing what happened to us in the whole slavery, it had to be that this is the same thing that took place with the leaders in Africa with us. Because we were down here in the Western and none of them came from Africa looking for us. None tried anything out here in the Western to save us or help us. That is my thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where were they? Where were them? And what were they doing? We had
Most of them are still slaves.
Okay,
now
we
through
gotta
the
study
system, you
African
know.
history, Empress.
Most of
Yes,
them
how
are
much
still
African
slaves
history
through the
have you
system,
studied?
you know.
One at a
Yeah,
time.
that sounds like how much African history have you studied? Not biblical history. I'm talking about realistic documentation of what the experience of colonization and slavery truly was, and what the African was capable of
I read a
doing.
lot of African history.
So,
Because I have a
in,
lot of African history books.
okay, so in what you've read, what has it told you regarding that matter?
No, I'm trying to ask the Africans them here that's speaking to tell me. I don't want to talk about what I read in a book.
I've just raised my
tell
hand.
me.
Yeah. Daniel. Give
Yes, my
thanks,
lord.
you know.
Tell me. I want to hear.
You know. Yes, I will tell the Empress. Give thanks, you know, for the moment to speak, you know, when the opportunity arrives. And I glorify and give thanks even for the mama, you know, crying in the West, you know, to return home. And I still hear Empress, you know, and I is still agitating third way, you know, for all African subjects to return home to Africa. And through the history, you know, I'm sure the Empress have seen, you know, our leaders, you know, in the past, even our father, Emperor Haile Selassie, you know, as an individual leader, you know, who went in the West, you know, particularly in 1966, he was making a tour in the Caribbean, you know, calling all African subjects to rally together because he said, you know, remember African children in the continent and African children in the West diaspora are one blood brothers and sisters, you know? So we have to find a way to him, you know, which is through our love for each other and our love for his culture, you know, Ethiopian culture, Ethiopian tradition. So I have been down here oppressed. And as I've said here in South Africa, that the white man is still around. His evidence is still here. You can see he's still dominating South Africa even up to this day. He's controlling even the president, who is a black man. So my answer to the sister would be, Empress, we are still down here under atrocities caused by the Berlin Conference in the 20th century in 1800, where Europe divided Africa into parts, and they created borders where you could not go in or come out without their system-controlled ways. So to answer the question, Empress, we have been down here, up here in Zion, crying, you know, holding the signal, you know, for ones to come home. Because remember, in the West right now, we have been blessed, you know, with resources. We have been blessed with education that can be returned home as an investment to Africa. So that is why we give thanks even for this movement, you know, of ourselves and this cohesion of ourselves to come together and work together to make this a reality. Because one cannot blame an African child when African child was going through genocide,
You got to
an African
understand.
child was going through atrocity, African child was going through poverty, African child was, the borders were closed. and the ways of transportation were monitored. There was red tape here everywhere by a white man who divided Africa like a cake in the Scramble of Africa in Berlin conference. Just to answer the question.
Yes.
Hold on.
Yes.
CC's hand is up next.
My Lord.
Just to
My Lord, I give
reiterate
thanks
what.
for that.
One second.
I give thanks for that. I give thanks for that because I could have read that in a book, but the feeling I get when I hear my brethren say that, it fills me with love. I feel loved. I would not get that from a book if I had read it, because I read hundreds of books.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
True love, Mama. True love.
Give thanks.
Banners of love, Prophet, Priest, and King, you know? Yeah, until those banners are patched upon every hilltop of Africa, you know? Yes. The whole world will not know peace. So we give thanks for this African Liberation Network. Give thanks for Prophet Daniel, facilitator, you know? Give thanks
my
to
Lord.
Deadly, you know,
Great
the
work,
ancient.
great work, my Lord. Man is
Thanks
doing
for
great
Empress
work.
Maisie speaking still, and Empress Sisi, you know, the one who feels the experience out there from Africa in the West at the present moment. Give thanks for her words and her contribution still. Give thanks for Prophet Winston, you know, in Granada, and Empress, you know, and the work they are doing for the schools down there, you know, up with the works, you know, and I give thanks for, through this Liberation Network programs, I will find our own feet and we'll start speaking of how we can collaborate with one another and find the true solution, you know, of this repatriation movement. Because right now, yes, we have to keep on writing the letters. We have to keep on lobbying. We have to keep on rallying, you know, in the houses of government. But we have to make our own efforts now, you know, and see the first lot, the first crowd, you know, the first enlightened ones to come home and really usher ones to feel, you know, welcome in Africa, my Lord and Empress. Love. Blessed.
Give thanks. My Lord, the feeling is we are taken out and we are slaves in a strange land. And them have a feeling of being slave in their own land.
Right.
Feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's worldwide white supremacy.
Absolutely. You know, King Emmanuel said the same thing that reach us down here, reach us in Africa. You understand? And we got to feel that. And you see, the Bible said, study to show yourself approved, a workman that needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You have to love and value Black people. You have to study Black history.
Yes, love ourselves again, Omega.
Yes, as an African born and raised in Africa, living in Africa, having that understanding of Africa and coming out here, the biggest issue here is it's not about anybody else but us right now. We got to understand one another. We got to understand and feel each other's pain, you know, each other, mutual burden bearers, you know? Yeah, because we're under the same frequency, but it's just manifesting in different forms, right? Yeah. And what King Emmanuel teaches here is the love. He said the greatest lesson Bobo can teach is love. They have to love one another. You see. And what does that mean? These conversations are love. Being able to reason as African people, having different experiences together under the Black Christ umbrella. It's love. So this is the beginning of such beautiful things. So we continue, you know, and we continue to reason no matter how hard it is. You know how it is. Sometimes we may all hit heads. We just continue and flow because this is the love one another, global African people. Okay.
Until we get to the right.
And this is it. So we're here and I give thanks for the moment. I'm so happy for today's reasoning. And Honorable Priest Edley, I told myself, I have a whole heap. I was going to put you on the hot seat and we were going to go back and forth and we were going to get to the root of truth and right, you know. And so give thanks for the energy, Elder, and for the love, okay? And for your
Yes, amen.
time as an apostle priest of King Emmanuel, you know what I mean? So I hope you can encourage the other generation of your type and sort to come forward, you know, because we love this, you know, as youths.
Remember again, my sister, this is a spiritual warfare.
Absolutely.
This is an inborn thing.
Absolutely.
You know, we can take the horse or the donkey to the water, but we can't force him to drink it.
I hear you. I hear you on that level. But give thanks to you still, right? And give thanks
Blessed
to
art,
everyone.
blessed art.
And love to all. Blessed night. And I hope to listen to again next week.
Beloved, give thanks.
All blessing and divine guidance.
Oh, blessed love, royal angel. Oh, blessed love. I do give thanks, you know, for each and every one tonight, my Lord. Bless up all my brothers in South Africa. Bless up all my brothers in the Caribbean. My sisters are to love.
Blessed love, Empress.
Yes, Honorable, just give thanks. Yeah, Mama
Blessed
Lily,
love,
give
Empress
thanks.
Sissy.
Blessed love. Sister
Blessed love,
Leanne.
Empress. Honorable Empress.
Honorable, give
Royal.
Mama Lily.
Mama G.
Lily of the Valley in Ethiopia.
Give thanks to the angel. Blessed Lord.
The
Thanks,
land
Yes,
of the
Honorable.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
man,
am
give thanks. Yes, I give
all of
thanks,
us in
Honorable.
Rastafari. Blessed Lord.
Yes, Honorable, yeah, man. Yes, give thanks to Baba Daniel, you know.
Yes, my Lord.
Yes, man, and the
who
great
make it
work,
possible.
you know, make this possible. I enjoyed every moment of the reason here tonight, you know.
Thanks.
Do
Give
hope
thanks for
and
your
pray that
presence.
we'll meet again next week.
Yes, I.
So they had them take care of they themselves. Be blessed, stay blessed, you know.
Yes,
And
I.
give God thanks to that God, the black God in flesh. What a mighty God we serve. Jehovah.
Yeah.
Rastafari.
And as the man say, reason is better than preaching, you know. So
Yes, sir.
by these reasoning, my Lord, the man give us the way to redeem ourselves, you know, and our people, you know, especially the poor and the have not most eyes. So that's
Give thanks to everyone for your, you know, your presence and your participation. Give thanks for sharing, you know, openly. Give thanks for the love. Yeah, the Black Christ love, and, you know, reasoning with one another builds love, you know, and builds trust and builds understanding, and which will bring forth fruit, you know, and physical and tangible fruit if we continue to build it, you know. So at this time, yeah, we'll seal up the reasoning. I would love it if the priest could lead us in a prayer to seal it.
Yes, beloved, we close forward with the same 133rd Psalm of Mighty King David, Holy Emmanuel, I.
Yes.
Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for us brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity and love. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that runneth down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirt of his garment, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountain of Mount Zion. For there the Lord commanded his blessings, even life and love forevermore. So we hail our God, Celestia, Jehovah God, Rastafari. Our Almighty God, Rastafari, great and terrible God, Rastafari is the Almighty God. Jah, who seated in Zion and reigneth in the hearts of all flesh. O thou most high, eternal Father, Jehovah God, Rastafari. Hear us and bless us, O Lord. Keep us and sanctify us all. Cause thine holy face to shine upon us, thy children, that we all shall be saved and redeemed. How thou most high God, Jah Rastafari. Lord, hear thee in the day of trouble, the name of the God of Jacob defend thee. Send thee help from the sanctuary and send thee out of holy Mount Zion. Holy Emmanuel, I. My Lord and Empress, Prince, Princess, give thanks again.
Glorified.
Thanks to everyone.
Perfection, our powers.
Look well, only is doing good.